Somebody's here? I don't know. Maybe you should give them a call. Okay. This is salted cashews, oats. Yeah, like it's just to use up the oats that we have in the house. Please take them. They're salted cashews, oats, not sugar chocolate, cranberries, maple syrup. There is maple syrup. There's peanut butter. I don't know. Trina, whatever. It's like, don't you know that before Pesach you have to just be creative with using everything? So that's what we have. Okay, so sorry for all the people out in the land of Zoom. People get excited about. I'm sorry I don't have more of them. I had like a huge thing of them. I thought that nobody was eating them in the house, but actually people were eating them. Okay, so so today we're focused. We're gonna have two, like one long session that's broken up into two parts, and you stay as long as you want to stay. And we're gonna focus in the first part on matters relating to the Seder, and we'll focus on the second part. In the second part, about more klaliyut matters having to do with coming out of exile, and in this season of release from exile, may we see it. And so it's kind of they lead into each other. There's no way not to have cross communication between the two because the Seder and Leil HaSeder and the Seder plate and everything having to do with chametz and matzah is all about coming out of exile in any case. I'm glad you're enjoying it. So yeah. Should I put up soup? I have like a big pot of soup. Does anyone want soup? Okay, maybe for the next time. Like I'm getting rid of the food. Okay, so first of all, before I get started, I just want to show you something. Just because when you have so I can't move my places. That's the problem. I don't want to lose my places in my svarim. I'll take. Oh, can't take that napkin. Is there like something? Perfect. Okay, great. So I want to show you something, just because because of my husband, it's not me, we have all kinds of interesting props in the house. So like this is the kind of thing, like somebody who's interested in having using kavanas of the mukubalim for the Leil HaSeder. That's the kind of thing. So just I'm trying to see if like you'll be able to see this. You all in Zoom land know I'd have to shut off the I guess I'd have to shut off the background. How do I do that? Settings. Oh, I don't want to start playing with this. I don't know how to make it. Okay, I can't do it. You're like I'll have to show a picture or something. Okay, so this is a sort of Kabbalistic guide to the Seder. My husband has a whole bunch of different ones of these, but I want to tell you what's in here, like just from the women's perspective. What's one of these things that could be thought really interesting? It's got the Arizal's recipe for charosas. Oh, wow. So now the reason why I'm bringing this up right at the outset, not that you're necessarily going to make the Arizal's recipe for charosas, but just to start off what we're learning, to understand that every single detail of Leil HaSeder, in all of its, down to its smallest points, is full of sodos and full of hints and remazim and things that your nefesh needs, your soul needs it to be able to be prepared for Geula. This is what Chazal built the Seder plate, built the Leil HaSeder for us in order to make us prepared for the wonders of Kimei Tzeischem Mitzrayim and Niflos. This is our ongoing 3,500 yearly re-immersing in Yetzias Mitzrayim, in Geula. And so it's kept us ever fresh and ever young and ever awake and ever ready, for in spring, which is Aviv. We'll see according to the Mekubalim, Aviv is the language of Ibui. Why is this holiday called Chodesh? It's called in the Torah Chodesh Aviv, right? In Aviv. What does Aviv mean? Spring. Okay. Now, but what does Aviv really mean? Av. Okay, but we have another month called Av. Av Yud Beis. Okay, so Aviv comes from the language of Ibui. Ibui. Go outside and you'll see, like, I try to keep them out of the garden, but outside the gate, it's the season where everywhere you look, in Yerushalayim, if you're paying attention, walking along the side of the roads, all over Eretz Yisrael, you know what you see? You see grain. You see wild grain. Okay? There's wild rye, and there's wild barley, and there's wild wheat that's growing all over the place. Right outside, you'll see there's a couple of stalks that are growing right on the other side of the fence. And the reason why I have to be meticulous about pulling them up inside the garden is because I have grapevines. It's a problem of kilayim. So every time I see them come up, I have to pull them. Very important to pull them. You don't understand. You can't have kilayim is to mix species in the garden. So there's a lot of laws about it, and it's especially stringent regarding the keren when you have grapevines. I have a lot of grapevines, also starts and so on. So be very careful. But right outside the gate, there's now ibui means when you see. I recommend that you look for this because it's now the season. When you see the green stalk of the grain, and you see that the kernels inside of the stalk are starting to come into fullness, and they're sort of juicy and getting a little bit, they're starting to like fill it out and push it out and bump it out, that's called aviv. That's ibui. The word ibui means the state of the grain in its beginning of bulging in the sheaf.
You call it like sprouting?
No, it's not sprouting. No. Sprouting is what happens after the seed has already come to its fullness, and then it's ready to make a new plant. This is not that. This is the seed inside of the sheath. There's a whole bunch of them. It's like a line. It's grains, yeah? So the inside of that capsule, inside of that sheath, there's like a whole bunch of little seeds, and those seeds are starting to become full, yeah? And
are they edible? Are they edible at this point?
Green wheat?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, you can eat them, but so they're starting to come into fullness. They're only just starting to push out this. Okay, so that's that state of ibui, of the grain, the freshness of the new grain that's just starting to express itself. That has to do with your mind, okay? Because we know that the grains, the 5 grains, are all about your das. It's all about your awareness. So the time of Geula is the time when your mind starts to wake up and be ready for receiving big awareness from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it all starts to come in on Leil HaSeder, right? Leil HaSeder, it all comes in like in a rush. And the Arizal speaks about it like Leil HaSeder, we have to make Seder on the Leil HaSeder, because actually what happens is the Mochin come out of Seder. That all of this awareness, just like it flashes on you all at once. Think about how it feels, Leil HaSeder, you're sitting with the Haggadah, and like you have all of these different feelings and thoughts and impressions that just kind of like flash in at you. And like now you see something in the Haggadah you never saw before. You've been saying the Haggadah for the last 50 years, right? But now you see it, something in it you never saw before. It's always like that. You're feeling something you haven't felt before. That is, or even if it's something that you have felt before, you're getting it in a new way. So all of this, like it's a episode, what's happening is that your mind is wide open. And Ibui, Aviv, is Lashon Abba. Abba means Chochmah, but it's the flash of Chochmah that you get from someplace outside of yourself, right? It's not something that you've processed. It's something that it's just got to lands on you. So these big awarenesses that land on you, the whole organization of Leil HaSeder is in order to make Seder out of something that doesn't have Seder. It's like you got thrown on you a whole bunch of beautiful ideas, feelings, bits of inspiration. Wait, do we get to do? We just gotta follow. Yeah. The Russian, yeah. That's a different one. No. The Ratzim Yatzu Techufim is a little bit of a different story on Pesach. Yeah, it's a bit of a little bit. So Leil HaSeder is like Chazal gave us the means to be able to create order out of spiritual holy chaos. Okay, and the night of Leil HaSeder, it's like you can be feeling and experiencing so much, and all of the orderliness of the procedure, like it's a very big procedural. Everything has its place. You have the 15 Simanei Seder. You say tefillos exactly in this order. You have to drink kosos in this order. You eat the matzah in this order. Everything is. We have the Haggadah, which is even the story of the narrative, right? Even the story of the narrative is like, no, the story of the narrative is a way of trying to impose Seder on something that's inherently very out of Seder. Okay, so let's go back to our.
Does this chaos also have to do with the chaos of Purim, or is it purely coming from the night of Pesach?
No, it's coming from the night of Pesach. Oh, everybody's trying to get rid of all the hummus. Should I take out the pesto? Should I take out the pesto? You have something to have with your steaks?
Totally.
Yes, you can take out the pesto. There's a thing of pesto in the fridge. Take it. Let's go. Okay. You have to speak up. If you, it's like with candy in class, you know, like if you didn't bring enough for everybody, then you
I
can bring
was
it.
always a child, you know, in my parents' house. My father was always particular that we should conduct ourselves. First of all, not to speak while you're setting the Seder. And one of the things he always said was that the way you act to say the night is similar for the whole year. Where is this coming from?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting thing. You have, I mean, that result says that a person who's nizar from Chum, it's like we understand it's the outset of something, right? It's the beginnings. All the beginnings come from Pesach. Zecher Yetzias Mitzrayim. Okay, enjoy the goodies. Everybody's pressing. Good, I'm happy. Okay, not pressing, eating, pressing is bad. So, okay. Okay, so let's jump in. Yeah.
How do you get rid of the thoughts that bombard you against the good stuff that's coming in? Like, how many pages before we eat? Seriously.
First of all,
I'm serious.
okay, so first of all, it's good, like, well prepared. What do we say? Forewarned is forearmed.
Right.
If you know that it's distracting to you to have a long wait until it's time to eat the meal, make sure before you bring in chag that you eat properly. Eat a meal, like eat a proper meal.
I make a big
Pot of chicken soup. That's what the kids always have.
You're apparently not the only one.
No. Okay, so let's get back to that results haroses. Yes,
Oh yeah.
you're interested?
Yeah.
Okay,
wait,
so-
1 second. Let me get a new pen.
No, I'm not. It's not because I want to give you a recipe. Like however you make haroses is great. Don't change your recipe. Don't change the thing. You know, you make it. Maybe you make it the way your mother made it, the way your grandmother made it. I remember being a little kid. We always used for Leila Seder. We always used the same big wooden bowl that was my grandmother's bowl with the double-bladed chopper. And my sister and I, it was our job because when we were kids in Brooklyn. This is like. So I was like, I remember being 7, 8 years old. That was a mechubadik job to have to make the charoses. We didn't get to make it. We got to chop the walnuts and to chop the apples. That was like what, you know, sitting there. I remember sitting there in the kitchen and all of those memories, right? All of those memories are so powerful. They leave such deep impressions.
Did you get the bowl?
Hmm?
Did you get the bowl?
That bowl I didn't get.
I
no.
got the bowl and the chocolate. I think the chocolate's 100 years old.
Yeah, that double bladed with the black handle. So and don't like never dismiss the importance of for your children, for your grandchildren, Bezrat Hashem, like the importance of small details in the preparation for Yontif that you can sometimes think are insignificant. Because I still remember being a very little child, and it was once the house was clean for Pesach, we would lay down newspapers. I remember on the floor in the dining room, and then it was time to take the Pesach boxes down and unpack the boxes and sort out the dishes, and then to go take them and wash them. And I remember I couldn't have been older than 6 or 7. I remember the first time it was my job to unpack the Pesach dishes, and we had, you know, like I had anyway, like a little bit of a wild imagination, okay? But
Very surprising.
but like my father, Zichron Livracha, used to collect like when he would see cute little shot glasses, you know, throughout the year. If he came across something, he would buy them and collect them and keep them for Pesach. They would set them aside for Pesach, and then because this one had a little gold rim and this one had like a little bit of a rose touch to it, and this one had a little handle on it. And I'm telling you, I was a little kid. I was convinced like the gold rim is like it's mamish gold and it's like fancy dishes, fancy. It wasn't so that it was so fancy. Some of the plates were the older plates for my baba that actually were very nice plates, but the feeling of sitting on the floor and doing this unpacking and feeling like the excitement of Pesach like is around the corner, and look at the treasures, you know. I remember there was a set. We never used such a thing during the year. There was a set, a candy. There was a dish for candies and sugar and a creamer thing that was like, was it fancy, Crystal? Was it Waterford? No, but in my imagination, it was like something very, very precious, you know. So the small impressions and the subtle impressions, you know, they go in very, very deeply.
When you're young, you're little, and you're not involved in every step of the program.
Right.
You wake up in the morning.
And it's like
now-
done. Yeah. Done. Yeah. And this feeling, like how deep it goes. I remember seeing in a Musar, a mimer from the Shirei Das, and tells a Rav. He asked an interesting question. He says, in Europe, so in Western Europe, it was traditional and probably still is, although I'm sure people are a lot less interested in it. But like there was a very famous, Lahabdil El Favdalas, very famous passion play, okay, that was done in Germany for many, many centuries, for 2 weeks out of every year, for their so-called Holy Week. Yeah, like in the Easter season, yes? Okay, so that, and whole populations would come and converge on this town in Germany for the traditional passion play, yeah, which went on for 2 whole weeks. And it was a whole, and people going through the streets. And by the way, it's not only in that traditional town in Germany, but it's all over. Like, so he asked the question, he says, we see that there's a lot of pageantry there's a lot of pageantry in especially, he was speaking about in Christianity, a lot of pageantry to get across like the big message of the big story. And how come we don't do that? This is what the tells the Rav asked. Our story is such an important story. Why don't we? Now, Sephardic Jews do a little pageantry,
Right.
Some do, like they take leeks and scallions and they flagellate themselves, or someone else does it, or they go out in the street carrying a sack of matzah, etc. Okay, so there is a little bit.
They wear jalabias and stuff.
You'd be surprised at that.
So the Telzer Rav asked, but why don't we have like everybody get together, put on a huge performance, like in the shtetl, like why we don't do that? Why don't we do that? So he said, when you externalize something spiritual to too great a degree, meaning when it takes on like an externalized form, you'll run the risk of having, and the language he uses is that the chitzonim eat up the energy. And he gives the example of if you lay out a big spread on the table, and you just leave it there, like everything out on the table. He said, if you walk away for a minute, and you'll find that the mice and the rats and the critters and the bugs and everything, they're gonna attack they'll attack the stuff on the table. So he says the externalization, too much externalization, leads to, and when he says that it's the chitzonim, so the chitzonim, he doesn't mean only like the shindalits, something spiritual and abstract. He means also that our subtler spiritual feelings wind up getting overwhelmed and devoured, right? Because our senses and our emotions, which are excited about externality, wind up taking over and grabbing onto the experience. Yeah. So he talks about Leil HaSeder as being like this perfect balance that Chazal provided us with, of providing just enough cues, right? Like physical externalized cues to draw from us, to pull into us the feelings and to draw from us the story. But not that it should be an overwhelming pageantry that we get so ooh and ah about, that it winds up only being about what we see and what we hear, and because we have to be able to feel for the things that are more subtle, and not have only the emotional and the physical experience of something take over. So that's Leil HaSeder. It's like this perfectly calibrated way of getting the message of Geula and its continuing promise, right? And our past and also our future, it all comes together in Leil HaSeder. That it gets to penetrate deep, deep, deep inside of us and does the work that it's supposed to do. Okay, so back to the results. Charo says. Okay, so Charo says, he said, okay, everybody's got different ways of making it. So the results, Charo says, has 10 ingredients. 10 ingredients. It has 3 spices, and it has a combination of 7 fruits and nuts. Okay, now you don't have to.
So good.
Okay, so the results, Charo says, you want to know what it has in it?
Yeah.
Okay, but you're gonna be surprised. Okay, lavender. Lavender.
I'll come to your house and get some.
Yeah, you can get some from outside. Lavender, ginger, cinnamon. Okay, those are the 3. And then the 7 fruits are grapes, figs, and be careful with those figs. Okay, pomegranates, dates, walnuts, apples, and pears. Okay,
Sounds so good.
sounds so good.
Walnuts
Okay,
and pears.
No wine?
okay.
No wines?
That's okay. That's part of the grapes, perhaps. Okay, but listen, I'm not telling you to make Davisas charosas. You understand? I want to talk about what does it mean that one of the greatest
Dates, walnuts,
listen
pears.
to me. It's not because of the recipe. You shouldn't change what you're doing. You should do it as you always did, whatever you did. Okay. The taste of Pesach, the aromas of Pesach, as they are always customary for you, and what your family is used to, and what you've been used to, is very, very important to preserve. There's no mila, I don't think, in specifically making it this way. But I want you to understand that even ad kidei kach, such a thing as the composition of the charoses has very, very lofty meanings, because the three spices are representative of the Gimel Rishonos, is that you have keser chochma bina or chochma bina das, right? Meaning that's the tavlin, that's the spice, right? And then afterwards you have like the chomer, the material of it, which is the seven lower midos. And I'm not going to go into the details of which one is which. I'm just telling you that down to such a detail. Enjoy the pesto, by the way. Did someone try? We need a spoon or a knife or something in it. Is there a spoon or a knife? Don't be embarrassed to take. There's crackers or something on the table. Use them, please. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So I just do I need to go through the order of the Seder plate itself according to everybody, like how it's set up?
No.
Everybody. I'm talking about the pneumius. Obviously, you know what goes on your Seder plate. You know what belongs on your Seder plate, but your Seder plate.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, quickly. Okay, there's different practices. So I'm only going to say what we do, because I can't talk about what other people do. The placement. So some people will make sure to have the Seder plate sitting on top of the three matzahs. Yeah,
Right.
and some people will place the matzahs here, like closer to the head, and the Seder plate further down the table. And even the placement of the salt water, that Rizal had a custom about where you put salt water. But there are 6 elements on the Seder plate, correct? Okay, so the 6 elements on the Seder plate are in the positions of 6 spheres. And the plate itself, some say the plate itself representative of Malchus, or some say the table. Which is, by the way, that Rizal never ate at a table that didn't have 4 legs. Yeah, we used to have one that had 2, like a base, a pedestal kind of table. Anyway, my husband always had that table. He said, like, why don't we have a table with 4 legs? You need a table with 4 legs. So eventually we got this one, but table with 4 legs, because Malchus there's 4 Malchuyos, right? There's 4 dimensions of Malchus. And the table is always representative of Malchus. Okay, so either the plate itself, we say parallels Malchus, then we have the other 6 of the spheres. And I'm not going to go through all of the elements of the Seder plate, because I don't know. I feel like I've taught it before in the past. So I don't have to necessarily, I have classes and recordings, and if anybody wants to go deeper into the aspects of the Seder plate, we can. I want to do new stuff, okay? So this year, I decided to choose a few different pieces from Komarna.
Everybody turn
Okay.
their phones, please.
We're going to focus a little bit on the Komarna Rebbe's teachings regarding
Are you gonna talk about the placement of where we put the things or not now?
Chesed. Yeah, well,
Oh.
if you're following Minhag Arizal, the Zroa is in the position of Chesed, the Beitza is in position of Gvura, the Morer is in the middle position of Tiferes, the Charosis is in the bottom position of Netzach, the
Spheres.
no. The
Karpas.
Karpas is in low in Hod, and the Chazeres, the shtick horseradish, is in the place of Yisod. Okay, and then the plate is the plate.
And
is
the
Malchus.
3 matzahs are the.
Chok minadas, yeah. Okay, now, so we have, so obviously, just like the order of the Seder plate, all of its elements, etc., all have deep sodas to them, but I just want to focus first, let's talk about matzah, okay? Yes, we'll talk first about matzah. I mean, look, the whole business of cleaning out the house, right, is only to prepare the space so that the chametz and the sour is taken out of the space so that you can bring in the matzah, correct? That's the whole idea, right? L'chaber the bayit, the whole point is to just clear. You have an isser, there's an isser, bal yiroi, bal yimatzeh, not allowed to see it, not allowed to own it, right? Not allowed possession. I shouldn't have, it has to be your chametz that you see, obviously, so we have all of these, distinctions between the chametz that is somebody else's. Is it a Jews? Is it non-Jews? Do you see it? Do you not see it? But we'll say it's to clear the space so that you're in a position to be able to take in the matzah. And Amy said, well, how do you get rid of the thoughts, right? That are distracting thoughts. I give a practical example, like, okay, so eat a meal before you bring in Yontif. That's a very practical thing. But B'shas Maisa, it's all about cleaning out the chametz and bringing in the matzah, right? So when you have thoughts, Nachman says in the fifth lesson, L'Ktim Morani, is a very beautiful teaching on the chametz of the mind, right? The chametz of the mind. And if we want to be able to have the space inside of our awareness for holy words and holy sounds to be able to reverberate, because he talks about that like thunder. And Breslov Chassidim have the custom, everybody says the Haggadah out loud, very loud. Okay, it's not only us, Lutzker Chassidim also do it. I think the Karlinas are also very loud in saying the Haggadah out. And then it's like a big din, okay? And the way you think about it, like again, the way that it reverberates is like the reverberation of thunder, because it says in the Gemara and Brachas, HaKadosh Baruch Hu only gave Amim. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu create thunder? Why is there this phenomenon of thunder? In order to straighten out the heart of people so that they can have your Shemayim. So we understand that holy sound, think about it like the sound of the shofar, right? That the sound of the shofar has to have sufficient space, meaning inside of your mind, you have to have enough openness and like a chamber, an echo chamber, right? So it's not that you clean your brains out exactly, but you sort of do clean your brains out. The point is that you do have to clean your brains out. The main chametz of the mind, David HaMelech said in Tehillim, Ki yis chametz levavi, right? He said, if my heart should become chametzdik. What does it mean to have a chametzdik heart? So what does it mean to be mitchametz? What is chimutz? To let things sit and ferment. So it means like the brooding thoughts, the negative thoughts, the sitting and mulling over something unproductively again and again. This is called the chametz of the mind. So this is the main avoda, not only leading up to Pesach, but obviously also on Pesach and at Leila Seder itself, is I'm not sitting, as soon as I catch myself, right? So what happens if a person, chas v'shalom, finds a Cheerio in their house on Pesach?
Flush it down the toilet.
You immediately destroy it, right? You remove it, you destroy it. Now, first of all, you mevatel it before. So it's like, it's ka'afar da'ara anyway. It's like it doesn't exist milachatchila, but you're not allowed to see it, and you already mevatel it. You don't possess it, but you're going to get it out of your space. The instant that you find it, you get rid of it. Same thing with the chametz of the mind. The instant that I recognize that my head is filled with and beset by thoughts that are unproductive and circular and brooding. So at that moment, I have to metapel with it. But are you metapel with it by like taking it out? How do you take out a thought? So Rabbi Nachman gives beautiful eitzah. He says very often when we try to struggle with our own negative thoughts, we wind up getting more entangled in them, right? Because the preoccupation itself, it becomes a focal point, and then you just wind up being ever more, you become ever more entangled. So he gave a piece of eitzah that's extremely practical and very easy to do. He said that it's a fact, and we've spoken about this many, many times. It's a fact, unless you're Rav Chaim Ozer Grodzinski or some great person who's Rav Chaim Ozer Grodzinski was the Rav of Vilna, who would, he was exactly like, we're going to say in the Haggadah, Rav Elazar ben Azariah, Ariani kiven shivim shana, I'm as if I am 70 years old, because he was only 18 years old when he became the Rosh HaBeis Din, right? Rav Chaim Ozer Grodzinski was made the Rosh HaBeis Din, the head rabbi of Vilna, when he was 18 years old. So he was able to, this was before the war, he was able to answer two shilas at the same time.
Two different hands.
Two different hands. He would answer two different shilas with two different hands. Now, that is something that is the reason why it's used as an example is because it's so impossible. Because human beings, even if you can write with two hands, you can't think two thoughts at the same time. So we understand that a Rav Chaim Ozer was doing something that's unnatural, that's impossible, yes? Which only highlights to us the fact that we are only capable of thinking one thought at a time. So, which is one thought at a time is good, is a big bracha. Because if you catch yourself, the instant you catch yourself thinking something catch yourself playing with the chametz of the mind, right? You don't have to do anything other than let go of it and grab onto the matzah of the mind, right? Meaning you only have to hold on to the immediate next thought that is the thought where you want to be. So when you're feeling distracted at the Seder, you put your consciousness right back into the next word of the Haggadah, and you don't leave that next word. You just go right into the next holy word. It's true in Tefillah, and it's true in the Leila Seder, it's true in everything in life. You can only think one thought at a time. Okay, so let's go on. So Kamarna Rebbe, there's some matters pertaining to elements of Leil HaSeder that I want to focus on for this hour. we're just rapidly moving along. Okay, matzah. So I'm just going to read you. This is a say for my husband. If anyone is interested in such things, my husband, gave me this to take a look at. It's Kamani Rebbe's Haggadah Shel Pesach. Every year I like to see things new that I haven't seen before. So this year, this is a new one for me. Okay, matzah. Now the ideas that he brings, I'm familiar with, and most of you are already familiar with them, because a lot of them are going to be familiar if you've learned any pnimius on Leil HaSeder at all, right? Because the ideas behind what the nature of matzah is, yeah. So probably they'll be familiar, but he's going to bring more than we likely have familiarity with. Okay, matzah lechem anya, ha lachma anya, right? We're going to start our Seder. Ha lachma anya. You're going to pick up the matzah. Not you, someone, right? Whoever is going to pick up the matzah and display the matzah. Ha lachma anya. This is the bread of anya. We translate this as affliction, but Chazal tell us anya means poor, yeah, but it's a matzah is the bread upon which onim alav dvarim harbe. It's from the language of la'anot. Now in the Torah, when it says, or in Tanakh, when it says ana va'amar, does that mean that he answered? In the Tanakh, no, ana va'amar, ana, the word with an ayin nun hey, ana va'amar. That phrase in Tanakh, does it mean he answered and said? No. I'm telling you right now, no, it doesn't. Because if he said it, he already answered, right? Or if he answered, he said it. So it'd be redundant. Ana means in Tanakh, in its original meaning, it means to raise one's voice, okay? La'anot, it means to raise your voice. Onin alav dvarim harbe isn't about questions and answers, it's about the raising of the voice. It's about expressing the voice in an emphatic way, okay? That's really what it means, la'anot. So, halach ma'anya means bread. Why is it bread of our affliction? Because, okay, how do you think of the word halach ma'anya? When in Leil HaSeder, have you always thought about this? Anya. Affliction, being in Egypt. Okay. Now, but did we eat bread?
Associated with Egypt. It's by the Geula, there were
Exactly. We ate matzah when we left Mitzrayim, right? We left Mitzrayim and we ate matzahs. So it's the bread of our oni, because it's the simplest of simple foods, right? So meaning it's what we ate upon our release from the state of affliction, and it's a bread over which we're going to talk and talk and talk, right? That's Leil HaSeder. And the Haggadah is like the talking, the telling. That's the Haggadah, is the telling. And then it's also oni because it itself is simple and cannot be simpler, and it is the bread of a poor person because it doesn't have any tosefet. It has no.
In reality, it's not the bread of the poor person.
Exactly, right? It's like it's like costs more than chicken, costs more than meat. Okay, so.
But ideally, with the components,
but it means in terms of its basic components, you cannot get simpler than that, right? It cannot get simpler than that. And it also means the bread that you're eating because you have a need of it and you're in such a hurry that you don't have time for it to be ferment. You don't have time for it to ferment. So we have all of these different dimensions of oni. Halach ma'anya. And so I'm going to talk about, the Quran Rebbe is going to address the issue of round matzahs. All right. Now, I understand that not everybody uses round shmur matzahs. It's okay. And even if you use shmur matzahs that are machine shmur matzahs, there are those who hold that machine shmur matzahs are more likely to be more kosher than hand shmur matzahs.
Like brisk, no?
There are those who hold. Yeah, I'm not saying there's. There are those who hold that matzahs mechona, shmur matzahs mechona are likely to be more kosher. Okay, and so I have no, I'm not throwing any shade on square matzahs, on machine shmur matzahs, nothing like that. Okay, but there are ma'alot in the tradition. There are great advantages in the tradition of using the round matzahs. Whether you're using the Sephardic round matzahs, yes, the soft matzahs, or whether you're using the hard matzahs. Okay, so we'll talk about the roundness of the matzah. But think now, okay, halach ma'anya. And when it comes to yachatz, what happens to that middle matzah? It's the middle matzah that you break. Okay, so what happens when you make yachatz and you're going to which matzah are you going to tell the part of the matzah are you going to tell the Haggadah over? What gets put aside and what gets retained for the Seder?
Smaller part, you're gonna say that.
You're gonna say the Haggadah over the smaller part, you're gonna put away the big one. Afikomen is the bigger half. Now, according to Arizal, when you break the matzah, it's supposed to be broken in a way that makes it clear that it's the shape of a hay. Say, how does that work? So, no. You can manage with the hard matzahs. We do it every year. It's like a little bit like a punch it. You sort of okay. So it means you're breaking out basically like a quarter, a little more than a quarter, and what you're left with is what looks like a dalet. And the little separate piece, the hay. Okay, so when you say ha lachma'anya, you're saying hey lachma'anya. The hey aleph ha here is in Aramaic is hey lachma'anya. It means this lechem is a hay. Okay, and we're only going to be now telling the Haggadah over the small piece of it because the big piece of it all right chachma bina das, all of the big understanding that's available. It's not going to happen until Asid Lavo. Afikomen is after Mashiach comes. That means to say until after the whole story is done, then we get to have the big understanding. Right now, we only tell the part of the story that we get, but we don't get a lot. Okay, we don't get much of it. So we have that tiny little piece, but all together, it's a ha. Now, hay is also 5, right? And how many kinds of grain do you make matzah from?
5.
How many kinds of grain can be chametz stick? 5. Okay, meaning you can only make matzah out of the grains that can become chametz, right? Because just like you have 5 fingers on this hand and 5 fingers on that hand, so you have bilateral symmetry also in the thing that is already suited for kedusha and the thing that has to be repaired in order to be able to be brought into kedusha. That's like your right hand, your left hand. So chametz, this very delicate time for the Jewish people, right? The infancy of the Jewish people. We're careful, like we're more careful with chametz than we are about anything. There's no substance that you can eat that you have to make there's no forbidden food that is more serious in terms of its halachic dimensions than chametz on Pesach. Correct? You could be mevatel. Everyone knows this. You're mevatel in Isur. It's mevatel in shishin. Right. 1 part to 60 parts of that which is the drop of milk that inadvertently fell into the soup. Okay, that fell into the chicken soup. You have to throw away the whole pot of soup? No, you do not have to throw it. Why? Because the drop of milk is mitbatel inside of the great volume. Is a drop of chametz mitbatel inside of any volume of that which is kosher Pesach? Afilu b'mashu. Mashu has no downward definition, has no minimal definition. So it means that the implication of this is that of course, as everybody knows, chametz is much more potentially dangerous. Like that's really what the isur of that which you're not allowed to eat is about, like it being toxic. Okay, so it's a spiritual toxin. For Jews on Pesach, chametz is a spiritual toxin, and it's so severe that it's possible that even a very, very small amount has a very negative impact. Okay, and so even though we say when it comes to any kind of food that's forbidden, right? It says in the Torah, you'll become defiled by eating it. But it doesn't. But it's missing the aleph there. So Chazal tell us al tikun tikun tamtembam. You don't read it because it's missing the aleph. You could potentially read that word. Not you will be defiled by eating it, but you will become fashtut. You'll become all stopped up and blocked up from eating it. So we have this idea that the forbidden food, it results in some kind of an internal an intensification of a person's internal obstacles to kedusha. That's what it means to malev. It's harder to dive in, harder to feel kedusha, harder to feel close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we're very, very careful, right? We have so many layers and layers and layers for Jews of restriction and limitation around the consumption of foods that are forbidden. Correct? The Torah asks you to eat, chicken parmesan. The Torah tells you can't eat that? No. That was an answer that the Chazal added. Why add already onto the Isur? The Isur Bas B'chalav is mentioned 3 times in the same psukim. Okay, has 3 different dimensions. You're not allowed to own it. You're not allowed to make it. You're not allowed to eat it. Right? You can't eat it. You can't own it. Meaning you can't have enough from it. You can't manufacture it. Okay. So we have 3 different dimensions of Isur Bas B'chalav. Why Chazal feel that they had to add on to it? Chicken. Chicken is not the behema. The chicken. Okay, or I don't know, deer. Deer are not included in the Isur.
Yeah, you can have.
It's a chaya. No. Basar b'chalav.
Combining.
Okay, but they are included in these because Chazal added. Why did Chazal add restrictions? As if we 630 mitzvot? Yeah, domesticated beef. Okay, not venison, not chicken, not poultry. Okay, but Chazal, no, buffalo are domesticated beef. Buffalo depends if they're domesticated or not. Okay, so we have all of this additional Shabbos. So much of what defines Shabbos for us, yes, is D'Rabbanan Bichlal. It's not D'Oraisa, and it's not to dismiss it, but we understand how when something when there's a high level of spiritual toxicity to something, yeah. So Chazal were extremely careful to make sure that you don't get even close to it. Now we can understand how all of this hullabaloo that we have around the preparation for Pesach, right? And how much has to be done, how much we do, is really only about being machshiv, to make sure that inside of ourselves. What do you need for that? You need to go? You're not feeling well? Do you need a drink? No. Okay. You okay? Okay. So we have okay. Let's go back. Matzah lechem anya. Dehai anya. V'yesh das elyon lechem yeshamayim. Matzah shmur b'li pagam be'emunah shleim. So in a very compressed way, the Commander Rebbe tells us, matzah is called lechem anya. Or lachem anya. And this anya, Dehai anya. Dehai anya, again, remember, anya means affliction, poverty, simplicity, and the raising of the voice. Okay, 5 grains, that hay of the middlemost matzah, right? So you know that we have the term that we use grammatically to talk about the definite article, right? Is what? The definite article, the as opposed to an. Yeah, the definite article is the hay. It's called the hay hayidiyah. It's called the hay hayidiyah, the knowledge hay. So that matzah is the knowledge hay, right? That matzah is your knowledge hay, and there's different kinds of das. There's das there's awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that's, it's real. It's real. You experience it. It comes to you. You worked for it, right? But it's not necessarily. So it's matzah, but it's not necessarily. It's not chametz. It's not bad thoughts. It's not brooding thoughts. It's not negative thoughts. It's not. It's the bread that's been produced within the 18-minute range. Yeah, and 18 is chai, and it's thoughts that connect you to chai hachayim. That's all the matzah of the mind, right? The life of all life, the vitality of the world connects you to Hashem. That's all matzah. But there's matzah, and then there's shmur matzah. Matzah and shmur matzah are different entities, because matzah is the degree of das, of awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's, like, generally speaking, available to regular people like ourselves. Okay, it comes, it goes. Hopefully, we hold on to it as long as we can. But matzah shmura is a kind of das that is shamur mikol pugah. Like this whole idea of having matzah that, like, from the instant that the grains started to reveal themselves in the field, that they have been guarded and watched. If matzah is made from the grains of awareness, do we need air in here? Do you want to open the door in the back? People are, but maybe on that side.
Powerful information. It's fine.
Okay, so we have. I just don't want it to be that it's like.
Not stuffed at all.
I always put it. Okay, so matzah shmura, for most of us, I think that we can be enough honest with ourselves to realize that even when we have das de kedusha, like even when we are connected in our minds to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and we're aware of Him, for us it's fairly fleeting. It's not that intense. It comes and goes. We're always trying to hold on to it. it's not what you would call matzah shmura. It's matzah, but it's not matzah shmura. There are tzaddikim who have matzah shmura. Okay, that means to say their minds are in a state of they are exceedingly careful to keep the matzah of the mind, to guard the matzah of the mind. Okay, and it's not like, it's not like an us and them, but you understand that the practice of regular Jews, even if they don't eat matzah shmura through the rest of the Chag, right? They'll use machine matzahs through the rest of the Chag, or even not shmura matzahs through the rest of the Chag. But there's a lot of Jews who make sure to have 3 round shmura matzahs for Leil HaSeder. That they'll do. Why? Because Leil HaSeder is such a delicate time that even if normally our awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is very, it's a little bit, it can be a little bit thin. It could be a little bit fleeting. But all Jews want, in the deepest part of ourselves, at least Leil HaSeder, which is like literally getting born. It's like literally this moment of birth for the Jewish people and for every individual. So it's like, it's such a delicate time. Even if normally we can't have our minds be in the fish more, we know that we want to. Like we want to be able to eat a piece of that. We want to have some connection with that. And okay, so yeah.
So the difference between the matzah shmura and the matzah handmade still is the state of mind of who's
No,
making
handmade
it, or
matzahs.
it's a different
Okay,
procedure?
handmade matzahs, the handmade shmura matzahs. There's no such thing as handmade matzahs that are not shmura, as far as I know. Okay, handmade matzahs are shmura matzahs. The shmura matzah means that from the time that the wheat was ripening in the field, and it became time to cut the wheat. So it depends on shmura and matzah. We have different levels of shmura, but it has to do with from the grain that somebody had the responsibility to make sure that this grain, especially after the harvesting, did not get wet. So then the question is, does it go even earlier? Because in Eretz Yisrael, like from the time of the ripening of the grain we're eating not this year's grain, right? Our matzahs are made from last year's grain. And in any case, we're in Eretz Yisrael, so you don't eat chadash, you eat yashan. For people in America, Chutz La'aretz, whatever, there's consciousness about chadash and yashan, because if you're super frum, you eat yashan even in Chutz La'aretz. That means that you eat grain that's not from the new grain until it's past a certain date, okay? So people who are careful in Chutz La'aretz, they're careful about yashin, and not all kosher products are necessarily yashin products. And that's kind of been like a flag that people wave. I'm not making any, casting aspersions on that, but it's like an extra chumrah level in Chutz La'aretz. But in Eretz Yisrael, it's absolutely necessary, okay? And all your angel's bread that you buy in any bit of grain that has any kind of kashrus whatsoever, and every grain product that's produced in Eretz Yisrael, even with the most baseline level of kashrus in Eretz Yisrael, everything is yashan. Everything is, because in Eretz Yisrael, it's an actual isser to eat from the chadash, okay? And Chutz La'aretz, so it means even vinegars that are made from grains and I don't know, barley malt syrup and all different kinds of products. And so people who are careful about the provenance of the grain, it's not only about kashrus, it's about when it was harvested and when the product was produced, okay? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us in the Torah, he told us, you'll eat miyashan noshan. It's a sign of Hashem's blessing that you won't be in such a rush to eat the green grain. Someone asked, is it edible to eat the grain in the field? So yeah, it is. It is edible, but it's not the bracha of Eretz Yisrael to eat the raw grain in the field because you're starving to death and you're pulling up the grain. No, yashan noshan, that you'll have such an abundance of the harvest, a promise of Hashem's bracha, that you'll eat from the old grain because you'll have an abundance in storage and you won't be rushing to eat from the fresh, okay? The Chutz La'aretz, it doesn't relate because it's not from the grain of Eretz Yisrael, you're not in Eretz Yisrael. Now, there are those who say that it's a sign of the Geula that people got more careful about Yashin and Chutz La'aretz. Because it was known that that closer to the time of Mashiach, that even Jews in Chutz La'aretz would start to get more careful about certain things that in Chutz La'aretz we never were careful about, and one of them was Yashin. Okay, so there are. Let's go back. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what
That
you
comes
said.
from-
Yeah, when you buy products that come from Chutz La'aretz, so there's a whole chachma of the barcodes of like knowing the on the boxes of cereals and crackers and blah 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 blah, whether it is yashin or not, whether there's a yashin issue with it or not. This is a level of care about kashrus inyanim that a lot of people don't necessarily even think about, because in Eretz Yisrael, if it's got kashrus on it, so then it's going to be yashin or mela. And if you were in Chutz La'aretz before, so either you were careful about such things or you weren't careful about such things. If you weren't, then you wouldn't know. But if you were, then you would know. Okay. Now I've just opened up a whole new sugya of kashrus things that can now make you crazy. Okay, so
The year
Is this a
after
difference
she
between
died is a
selling
problem
hummus or
also.
not selling?
no. Leave Yashin. And Yashin is a different issue altogether. But the reason why I bring it up about the age of the grain, how do we get into the story of the grain? About the shmura,
Yeah.
is that the when from the time, so before the harvest, there are those who are careful about from the time that the grain is drying in the field. Okay, like you have to be shomer from the time the grain is drying in the field, but that's a very hard thing to control, right? So we have here from the time of Katsira. So it'll say from the time of Katsira. On a shmura, it means it's shamur mishas HaKatsira, from the time of the harvest. And once the grain has been harvested, and there's a lot of processing that goes on between the harvest and the actual production of flour. And then from the time that you have the flour until you actually make the matzahs and they're already baked. There's many different stages. There's 10 stages, actually 10, right? 10 stages of production between, which is also 10 spheres, 10 stages of production and 10 words in the bracha hamotzilach min haaretz, which when you hold your bread or your matzah, you're supposed to hold in your 10 fingers, okay? So you have all of this is from the time of the cutting of the grain. Well, actually it goes even earlier because, the 10 malachos and betzias in the past actually goes until from the time that you planted the grain.
What about
But-
during Shemitah? They have to go like before that and
Yeah,
the
they're using.
whole year
Stuff like
before.
that.
The grain that you're using for any year's matzah is like, it's from way back. It's
Oh,
not,
okay.
yeah. Okay, so you have, so the care that's taken over the grains, right? The care that's taken over the grains is like, now you think about it, well, what are these grains? This is tipe mochin, like every little drop of them, right, is like your little thought bubbles that are in your head. And so these little thought bubbles require a lot of protection and a lot of care and a lot of cultivation of the positive and protection from the negative. So most of us are just, we're like, it's too energy intensive and we're too distractible to be able to take that much care with our minds. That's the truth. But there are tzaddikim who do take that much care with their minds. And we have to have emunah that there are such tzaddikim. Right? Moshe Rabbeinu, when it says Moshe in the Zohar Kadosh, you know what it's talking about? Most of the time, it's not talking about Moshe as a person. Moshe as a stand-in is a keyword to mean das. He means das. Moshe means das. So Moshe Rabbeinu is the exemplar of, and what is he? What's he called in the Torah? He's called Anav Mikol Adam, the most humble of all people. He's the matzah shmura of the Jewish people. Lechem oni. That's the lechem oni. That's the simplicity. That's the humility. So when we're sitting at the table, right, and we're eating from these matzahs, we get an opportunity to ingest, right, to take into ourselves a little bit of the shmura nature of tzaddikim gdolim k'mo Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, and that's something to think about. What does it mean to have a connection? What does it mean to consume something? It means to make it a part of yourself, right? So Leil and Seder is one of the things that's happening, is that we have the opportunity to incorporate inside of ourselves, hopefully, some element of the way of thinking and the shmira of machshava, that the care that's taken with the thought process that we find among great tzaddikim who exemplify the das of the Jewish people. Okay, yeah, all right. That was in one line of the commandment. Okay, and so it's called emunah. Look at this. It's round, right? Because the emunascha svivosecha. That's what it says in the Torah. Your faith surrounds you. Think about who's our exemplar of the circle. Who did a circle?
Da Vinci.
Choni Amagil.
Sorry.
Da Vinci. Choni Amagil. He surrounds himself. Well, what did Choni Amagil do? In the time of great drought, what did he do? He drew a circle about himself and he said, I'm not leaving here, Ribbon Shalom, until you bring rain, and not Gishmei Bracha, V'lo Leklala, not too little, not too much. Yeah? Was very insistent on it. Now, the whole idea of Choni HaMa'agel, this idea of the igulim, because they're in Kabbalah, we have this idea of igulim, circles. Now, think about, look at your Seder plate. Perfect example. Okay, think about your Seder plate. So your Seder plate has this hierarchical arrangement, which is like a little bit like a ladder, right? When we talk about Sulam Yaakov, that Yaakov Binu laid down, and in Beisel he saw a vision of a ladder that its feet was on the ground, but its head went all the way up to the sky, right? So that's basically the whole ma'arechet of the way a person, that's the whole system and the organization, which is hierarchical, of having to climb rung by rung. When you're trying to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you learn this, and then you can learn that, you do this, and then you're going to be able to do that. You do Sur Meira, Vasei Tov, eliminate this, then you're able to do that. The Mesilas Yesharim, which is all about the building and the climbing of that internal ladder, right? So Mesilas Yesharim, what does he say? Zehirus comes before anything. Zehirus is the beginning of all beginnings. You have to first, be careful about this, then you can move on to that. And everything is very organized and structured, okay? A lot of Seder. But we know that when it comes to spirituality, there's a lot of stuff that happens. Sometimes the most important things that happen are not in Seder. Like, again, this idea of, Leila Seder, or even that Klal Yisrael was taken out of Mitzrayim. Okay? We call this in the Sarusa de Le'ela, that like HaKadosh Baruch Hu came down and extracted us, goy mikerav goy, right? Did this wonder for us. Were we ready for it? Had we climbed the ladder? No, mapito, not at all. So we understand that there's something like, and now think about the arrangement, like instead of your Seder plate being lateral, make it like flip it up and look at it like as if it's standing up, okay? So what you have is all of these different points that are like this ladder, a structure that you have to start here, and then you move up here, and then you get better at this, and once you've completed that, you can move on to this, and you climbing, hopefully, right? But then it's all surrounded by the circle, the plate that's underneath it. And even though we said that the plate is more like Malchus, it's actually like in that structure, it's more like the way that it's possible to jump from the bottom rung to the uppermost place, right? You can go to sort of like take a side road, okay? Because it's a circle. So you jump from the bottom to the top by going through the circle. And that's why we have this idea, like, let's think about how, don't we have all of these, it's kind of like not anecdotal, it's also very experiential, where like the image of like the mother who sits home and she says her Tehillim, and she's like barely literate, but she got such a deep emunah. She's talking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and her tefillos, they are so powerful, and they go, mamash, there's no barrier to these tefillos. That's called emunas chas v'yosecha. That's called, she didn't learn, she didn't go to school, and she didn't learn the sefer, and no one told her you have to do this, and then this, and then this, and then this. That's not the way her life works. That's not the way her avoda works. She has a different pathway, and she jumps because of the purity of the circle of her emunah from down here in the world of action, all the way to her highest rutzah, because that's the kesser, is the rutzah, is like the thing that's beyond it's not your actions, it's not your words, it's not your thoughts, it's what you want. That's the crown that you wear on your head, okay? And that's so big, and that's a crown is the circle, exactly. So a simple person, even exceedingly simple person, we understand, especially on Leil HaSeder, because there's all that Seder, but there's also this big circle. And with this big circle, with your circular matzahs, you can have experiences in the closest to Hashem, and an experience of emunah, deep emunah, that sort of bypasses. It's like this bypass road that can take you to a very, very, very lofty place because of your rutzah. Correct, but don't focus on that right now because it's Yetzias Mitzrayim. After that, everybody falls back. You know that the next day, after the following night, everybody collapses back, and then we all have to start moving from the bottom up and counting the sphera. But Leil HaSeder is like the night where all of your big holy feelings and all of your big ritzonos and desires to come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's like it's a shavah l'chol nefesh set of hours, like no barrier to entry. Okay, there's no barrier to the entry, to the sitting around the table and experiencing the fullness of what does it mean to be an individual who HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvodu b'atzmo, that the creator of all that exists plucked out of an impossible situation and took to a place of release. And it's for everybody, men and women and children and sinners and tzaddikim, and everybody gets to sit at the table and to partake in what does it mean to be in the mochin of shmura, that it's a leil shimurim, that you leave the door unlocked and you're safe and you're protected and you have nothing to worry about because HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes us out of our golius. Okay, it takes us all out of our golius. The main thing at this point in time, which kind of rolls over into what we're doing next, the main thing at this point in time is never for a minute to forget that HaKadosh Baruch Hu redeems the Jewish people. You know, everybody gets, it's like 6 months into this milchama, and what's going to be, and everybody, you know what's going to be? It's going to be good. That's what's going to be, okay? Is that a single bit of question? It's going to be good. It's going to be very good. That doesn't preclude the fact that on the way to something being exceedingly good, it can also be exceedingly difficult. There's no stira between this and that. Okay, we're gonna talk about the Leda afterwards. Okay, so we're gonna hold on. So we'll do another few minutes, yeah, and then we'll take a pause. Go.
Yeah, just it's not really connected. Just about minhagim. So I thought maybe you would let us this. My husband and I both have a minhag from our parents, but we don't know if it was just something that went ori or if it was really something to both of them. That we have like a hard-boiled egg in salt water.
Yeah.
There's no place in the Seder to actually have that.
Feed the kids.
It's to make sure that the children don't complain through until you get. Look, I'm not going to get into what's called a proper minhag or not. A lot of people do this. Yeah, but people will eat it as carcass.
No, not to eat it.
No,
We
before the
never
meal.
went to eat it. It was just like a bowl.
Before the meal.
It's a protein knowledge.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not going to get into this. I'm not going to get into it. Okay. The egg on the Seder plate and the hard-boiled egg, which is also roasted, is a zecher the korban chagiga. It's in the position of gvura. I don't want to talk about position actually right now. I don't want to go there right now. But whether you eat it or don't eat it, yeah, some people will, some people don't. But it's I'm not making judgments on the minhag whether it's. You have to ask someone else. Okay. Okay. No, I'm not. Okay, so. Okay, let's go on. Yeah, I know. We also did that too, but we don't do it anymore. Absolutely not. Very careful also about the amounts of. I mean, we used to when we were kids, we like went crazy on potatoes and popcorn, of course.
Yeah.
But
Wait, can we finish that piece?
Let's go on.
Yeah. No similarity.
Yeah. So okay, let's go on. So we have. Let's bet 1 second. We're going back now to the Indian of the matzah. Tam the matzah agula. So back to our round matzahs. People asked about the eclipse.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's amazing to me how I don't know how many millions of people all over the world, or hundreds of millions, or I don't know how many people all over the world were attuned to this big eclipse yesterday. Now the thing is, this is one of the greatest proofs of the fact that we live in a universe that was created by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is that the annular diameter of sun and moon under correct conditions, are the same. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay. The annular diameter means that the disk of one can completely occlude the disk of the other, because there's a perfect balance between distance and the proportionate size. Okay, now that one fact I remember taking a positional astronomy course online years ago.
Of course.
Let me tell you something. No, listen to me. First of all, I did a positional astronomy course when I was younger, but you know that when they opened up this possibility of taking university courses for free without being
COVID.
Yeah.
They had the
no. This is way before that. Coursera was from Duke University, a real. Okay, so I was like, oh, this is made for me. I don't need credits. I just want to learn stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's so I remember taking, and he was an Israeli. He was Israeli originally. The guy who was the teacher, but he was at Duke, and of course he has to address the fact that there's an equivalent annular diameter between the sun and the moon. And I'm waiting for him to deal with it, because in positional astronomy you can't get away from it, because it's all about what you observe. It's from the level of observation. It's not theoretical. And I'm just waiting for what he's going to say,
Mother Nature is amazing.
Yeah, basically it's isn't this awesome, right? Isn't that wonderful? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, there's no hesber for this whatsoever. It makes absolutely no sense. And and so an eclipse, a total eclipse, which is obviously not observable all the time at the same time all over the world because it has to do with what your angle is, right? So, from Mexico through, right, Canada. So this nice arc all across the United States. The Americas, we'll say.
Was it actually on Rosh Chodesh?
It was last night, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was Erev Rosh Chodesh. Okay, so the thing is that, but it was Rosh Chodesh because here it was Rosh Chodesh. Okay, so the position of Chazal regarding eclipses and all of these things is generally speaking that solar eclipses are destabilizing for the world, but more of a bad siman for non-Jews than it is for Jews. Okay, and especially in the case of a total solar eclipse, where there's this blocking out of the light of the sun by the light of the moon. But I want to focus on the fact. Let's go back to our matzah.
It's sourced in the Talmud.
Yeah, Chazal speak about it. But the thing is, because the Jewish people are associated more with the moon than with the sun. Okay, but the thing is, let's go back to our matzahs. Now, our round matzahs, right? We're eating them on Leila Seder, which is when you have the fullness of the moon, right? And it's the night of Geula, which is always about the moon in its state of fullness. Now, think about that punched out middle matzah. Because we're still in exile, we have to put away the big half of the matzah. That big matzah gets broken. That big round matzah gets broken because we're in exile, but we're looking forward to Geula. So we speak over the small piece, and we wait till the end. And afikomen, afikomen is not a Hebrew word. It's not an Aramaic word, right? It's a Greek word. Afikomen. What does it mean? Dessert. Okay. I remember we were kids that we used the Maxwell House Haggadah, and it called it the after dinner entertainment. And I remember being this 5 years old and being like, it's like, no, he's like is that like a play or like a dance? Like, what is this?
At the end of a word, but I think it means something we do.
Okay, so hold on.
So it might be something to do with like we are going to do this together. I can't remember.
So, but let's Chazal emphasize whenever our tradition made use of and retained a word that came from Greek or from Latin, mainly from Greek. So there's a reason why. Generally, it's because it had some kind of it had a kind of homophonic with some Hebrew or Aramaic phrase, and so they retained it because it had further nuance, So Chazal tell us, afikoman is in the Shon afikuman. Afikuman, that's Aramaic, not Hebrew. Afikuman means we came out. Afikuman means we came out and we ate from the mun, right?
Wow.
Now, because because when we ate the matzah of leaving Mitzrayim, it had a taste that was unfamiliar to us. And then, not long afterwards, when we received the mun for the first time, we said, that was the taste that we tasted in the matzah. So there's a correlation between the matzah and the mun. And afikomen is the language that we use to talk about, which Chazal retained, not because they loved the Greek so much, because there was a nice alignment between the position of the afikomen at the end of the meal and the fact that it reminds us at the end of the story, right, that there's an association between mun and matzah. Okay, so mun and matzah, the relationship between the two of them, like mun is lechem min hashamayim, right? That's what it's called. It's like bread that comes from heaven. It's not human food, right? It's lechem abiri machal ish. It's something that's otherworldly. It's not. It may have a material form, but there's something utterly not material about it, right? And so by the time we get to the end of the meal and it's time to eat the afikoman, so we're sort of we're trying to experience, right, what it will be like to be able to be in a state of mind and in a state of being as if we're eating now from the big das of Mashiach already coming and that the world has already gone through all of its cleansing and changes, and that's our afikum. So even though a piece has been taken out of it and it's not whole, right? but we sort of pretend like it's whole. There's a whole thing about the afikomen. It's interesting. Afikomen is the gift that keeps on giving. Everybody's got to eat a kazayis of it. So what do? Everybody gets a tiny bit, and then you add on other matzah to make up the measure for everybody. You don't have to have a kazayis from the afikomen. You have a kazayis of matzah for the afikomen, and it's called afikomen, just like when you make kiddush, yeah? So if there's like a little bit of juice or wine left in the cup and you add to it, so now it's all kiddush, right? It's just all kiddush. It's not all kiddush. You don't makadosh over that, but it's like a mikveh, like the same thing. A mikveh has an ashika, has a communication between the bore and the water that's in the pool, and even though all that water came in from some other place, but it now becomes it gets like it's got the spiritual nature of the thing that gave it its vitality. Okay, so the afikomen is the same thing, meaning that it's possible from a little grain of awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to come to experience what it would be like in some way of some bigger awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of some cleaner, purer, more liberated awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the roundness of the matzah, right here. Here. Okay. So the roundness of the matzah, he says, in terms of the importance of the round matzah. We have a remez as to why it should be round specifically. While we are in exile, the moon goes through phases of diminishment. It expands, it comes to fullness, but then it goes back down again. And that's because from the beginning of time, the seeds of Galut were already planted from the instant that the moon said, as soon as the moon expressed a sense of being displaced by someone shining right next to her. But there were two Moros Abdolim, two big lights. What's your problem? You have this kind of light. That one has that kind of light. You have a problem with that one's light shining? No, we can't both shine at the same time. Doesn't work. So Rav Nassim says, look, when you live in close quarters with somebody and one person is like, I need my space. And the other person got no problem. Not because one of them is an imposer and the other one is, like getting taken advantage of. But let's just say they both are like, equally occupying the space. But one of them says, I feel so infringed on. And the other one's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm perfectly happy to have you here with me. Like, I'm happy to be with you. Mm-hmm. So Rav Nassim says, this is the taina of the Levana. And that's why she has to make herself smaller. Because we don't see that the sun made a complaint. The sun didn't have a problem with her light. Right. Okay, so now let's move that forward. What does it mean, the sun's light and the moon's light? The moon is a reflected light, and the sun's light is this direct light. But they're both this beautiful, powerful light. They're just two different kinds of light, right? So at the very beginning, let's not think about it as sun and moon. Let's think about it as individuated self and HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light that shines via the individuated self. Okay? Does everyone get me?
Yeah.
Okay, so the individuated self says, that's the moon. I don't understand. If it's your light that's shining through me, yeah? Meaning you gave me a soul. It's the chelik HaKavimah is shining through me. So how is it my light, Bichlal? It's either you or it's me. It's either you or it's me.
Where's my identity?
Yeah. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, go make yourself small. Mm-hmm. If you feel that I'm an infringement upon you, when actually we're both shining with the same light, it's just two different kinds of light. You have a ways to go until you're going to be able to really be with me in the light.
What do you mean we both shine when it comes to Hashem?
Look, everything that exists, everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created, all of us, everything that is, is filled with the aura of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we're always trying to feel it. The thing is that as soon as we feel it, if we feel it, even for an instant, it's like we are nullified, null and void. And people have all kinds of questions that reflect the moon's taina, because people will say things like, and I understand where the question is coming from. They'll ask questions about what am I going to think and what am I going to know after I'm dead, or or which body am I going to get up with after
Right.
Everybody likes to go. I want the one that I had when I was 18, and the okay, so whatever. And you sort of the response to this, you can't really answer people like this because no, it's a lot of what on earth? Like
Should be our
you're
biggest
worried
problem.
about your sense of personal identity and what you're associating yourself with after you've already been subsumed into the big light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Listen, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has his ways of maintaining both the sanctity and integrity of your identity as an individuated entity, yes, and his great light and being subsumed in his great light. What are you worried about? For sure there is a way, but the moon is very, very concerned with keeping her space.
And you brought an example.
But also,
Exactly.
don't we have to be
She's
worried
very
about the
concerned
result?
without her.
Oh, that's
She's very concerned about having her space. Yeah, of carving out the place where she is. It's understandable, but like, who is like you're a you without the light that's shining through you? Okay, so we can understand how all of this is reflected in where does it all come from? Every time we see that the moon goes into states of diminishment and it comes back out of them, is like this mini replaying every month after month of the ways in which the darkness overtakes us and we get too much in the way. Why does the moon go into diminishment? Because the earth is blocking the light of the sun. You understand that's cool. The moon is still there, right? The earth is blocking the light of the sun. And so the shadow of the earth is falling across the moon, right? And so the position changes throughout the month, the relative position. And so the moon goes into darkness, but actually it didn't go into darkness. What happened is the big self got in the way. That's called the earth blocks out the light of the sun from behind it, right? And that's the shadow of the earth falls across the moon. And that's the state of the diminishment. Self. Can we come and we sit at the Leil Seder and we're eating matzahs agulos, and the Commander Rabbi says, right, yesh lanu remez, because all the time that we're in exile, the moon is in a state of diminishment, it's chaser, and bias hamelech Mashiach titmalei pnimat levana b'shnei. But the moon will come into a fullness when Mashiach comes, which means the individuated sense of self is not going to anymore be a blockage or an obstacle to the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu shining fully in the world. That's what it means. As it says, that the light of the sun, the light of the moon will be like the light of the sun, and the light of the sun will be 7 times as strong, or 49. And this is something we come to month after month back again in Kiddush Levana, even though women, it's not practiced fully to say Kiddush Levana. Lo yeh b'shum miut. We repeat over and over again. We're hoping and waiting and praying and yearning for the time when the moon will no longer go through phases of diminishment. But it's not like some astronomical phenomenon that we're waiting for someone to fix the system. You understand? The moon not going through any more state of diminishment means that the self is not getting in the way anymore of a HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light shining in the world. Self doesn't about self here, like
It's
about your
also
feelings.
literal, like
It
the
means
nature will be
yes, it means like you're drinking a cup of coffee, or you go to work, or you're, I don't know, doing anything that you do. The gashmius, the experience of the individuated nature of reality, is not going to anymore be an obstacle to Hashem's light shining. That's what it means to live in the state of Geulah. You'll go out in the same streets, you'll drive in the same car. Maybe there'll be maybe they'll be like solar powered or like air powered or something. But let's just say in the perfected world, we'd have the living in the same physical world, but it being a completely altered experience. Yes, that means that's why Chazal say somebody who's got das, who's eating shmura matzah all year long, right? It's like the Beis HaMikdash has already been built for them. The Geula already happened, because the state of mind and awareness that is the Geula itself is only about how you're experiencing. The Geula is not about externalities. It's about what happens to your consciousness, to be aware of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in everything, which is why people who, the Arizal said before Mashiach comes, you know where the avodah is? Tefillah and emunah. That's it. That's where the avodas are. Tefillah and emunah. Emuna cuts down to the root. Think about that Seder plate. We're jumping all the levels. Bottom line, if you're sitting in the corner and talking directly what's going on with you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the moment where you are, and you know that he's with you and he hears you, this is a moment of redemption that's available to any person who, no matter who you are, at every single moment throughout the day. It's accessible to us. Golus and Geula are not like two diametrically opposed places. In Golus, you find Geula. In the state of Shvira, in the state of the breaking, you find the opportunity to immediately change your state of mind, your das, your matzah. Instead of chametz, distraction, static, you're focused on the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is iti ve'etzli. He's here right now. And as soon as you do that, you're eating the shmor matzah. As soon as you do that, you're already eating some afikomen. You're already in a different place than you were before. And so small geulas are available constantly to us. And the more that builds, and the more, see, it's wonderful to be living in a world where everybody's talking so much about emunah. Great, perfect. That's exactly it. That's all that you need. Just keep focusing more and more and more on it. At this point, the only thing that we need to do is levakesh ach v'rak al melech HaMashiach, is only to daven for and beg HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the revelation of Mashiach. Ki es tzar Yaakov, as it says in the Navi. This is a terrible moment for Yaakov. We're in trouble. Hainu shetzochin levakesh al binyan hashlishi b'chinas Yaakov. You need to build the third Beis HaMikdash, which is the quality of Yaakov. Quality of Yaakov is to see the seichel sheish b'chol davar. It's to be able to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu and everything and to be connected with him and everything. That's what it means, the Beit HaMikdash HaShlishi. A third structure, great, okay? A third structure on Har HaBayis, everything, whatever. But that's not the place where nobody needs to go and take the bricks and do it. Commander Rebbe says something fascinating. He says, there's no reason, halachically, and by the way, there are people who would argue about this, but he says, halachically, you could bring korbanos now. Halachically, there's halachic justification for starting to bring korbanot. Yeah, sure. It's too much tzibur. Yes, but he says minig Yisrael. 1 second. Minig Yisrael is not to. Why? Because by the time we get to Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi, hopefully by then we will have realized that the externality of the structure is not the point, but the internality of the structure is the thing that has to be built. Then the external structure will come when it's time for it to come. The physical korban, the physical structure, halevai v'halevai she'yavo. But we never, this third one, the final one, you can never build it from the outside and then in. That's what happened with the second one. The second one was, the first one was inside to out. The second, and that was gone. That was really the only Beis HaMikdash we ever had. The second one was built from outside in, and it was always incomplete. And the third one, we're never going to have the third structure without first building on the inside.
That's why Gadol HaAchron is really talking that there were only two.
Yeah.
The coming one and the first
Yeah,
one.
the second one wasn't really a Beis HaMikdash. Shema Chaza. Lo ka'avrim v'chuli lo ki Yitzchak ele ki Yaakov shgo bayis. Avram Avinu, the place, what was the place of his dvekus, his highest dvekus? What was that called? Where did he go for his place of highest dvekus? No. The actual place. For him, he was called it the Har. He went to Har HaMoriah, right? And Yitzchak, where did he have his? Yitzchak called it the Sadeh. He called it the field. But Yaakov, Kiro Bayis. Yaakov, it's a structure. It's a place where you live. The mountain is the place where you climb. The field is the place that is Menif Perot. You get nourished by it, but you don't live in the field. That's not called living. But Yaakov Kiro Bayis, right? Because this is the base he said in Beitel. He said, now I know this is the place, this is the house of Hashem, right? So it means the house is the place where you live. Pesach, Leila Seder, is an opportunity to be in the state of the round matzah, where we live, even if it's only for that one night, where we get to live in the house of the Beis HaShlishi. Okay, we're in the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi, in the mind, via the mind. Not with the structures. Okay, pause. Does anybody want to take a pause? Let's take a pause. Sure.
What's the difference
Okay, wait, we're gonna have a pause. People are getting coffee and then I'm gonna go out and then I'm gonna jump back in. Okay, if you need the bathroom.
Yehudi, before,
I'm sticking it over here.
Okay, so I'm jumping out.
wait,
Huh?
before you pause, I didn't get your proof of.
So in the world of
Brown.
film, I can answer questions. Okay.
Okay, so just proof of God in the eclipse is just that the moon is able to be.
Okay, no,
Like,
watch.
I'm saying, like when they use Yaraf, you're saying that they can be the same size. Like,
The
what's
disk
your-
of the moon in the state of the total solar eclipse, the disk of the moon.
No, I got that.
Okay, now the only way that's possible is that there is, for however many, and by the way, we have them fairly frequently. That's the thing that's really appealing. The sky is a big sky. So the fact that we have that many conjoinings as often as we do is really wondrous. So we have the disk of the moon. The moon is far less large. The moon is much smaller than the Earth, and the sun is many times as large as the Earth. Okay, in terms of actual size. So the so the fact that there is a proportionate equality. That means at certain moments, certain times, for hours, however frequently, that the proportionate distance between the sun and the moon and the earth, okay, is so exactly calibrated that the disk of the moon moving, we'll call it, I mean, like, I don't want to say what's moving because everything's anyway and always motion, but okay, from our view, that as it moves, it actually covers the entirety of the disk of the sun is because of an actually very exact calibration between distance and relative size of three separate bodies. Okay, and that's something that makes no sense. Like in our big solar system, that should have any kind of a convergence ever makes no sense, because it means that their relative sizes, there's no relationship, like in terms of the cosmos, between the size of the moon and the size of the sun. Exactly. I mean, on a physical basis, there's no communication whatsoever. Like the moon is what it is, the sun is what it is. The sun is 93 or 98 million miles away from the earth, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's only because of the proportionate relationship between distance and relative size and position that such a convergence of two disks is possible. And there's no reason for it. Like physically, there's no explanation for it. And it's statistically so unlikely as to be impossible. And nevertheless, not only is it possible, but it happens fairly frequently. Okay. So for us, it's a reminder that the two original lights were the same size. And every so often they come into convergence to remind us of the fact that they were originally Shnei Maros HaGdolim that are in right now a state, the Morakaton is in a state of diminishment and damage.
Very nice, because also it's talking about relativity and size and position that is beyond our human measurement understanding. So
it's so impossible that astronomers, the only way that they deal with it is by not dealing with it. They're just like, okay, Luke.
Right, the whole moon, they're like, I don't know. It's just there. No, but it's beautiful.
The angular diameter is like so. Okay, so everyone can start coming back, maybe. How's the pesto? Isn't it good? I think it's the best pesto I ever made. That's non-moved.
So delicious, that pesto. Yes. I'm looking at you going.
On the basis of the midos. Why do you say two different places?
It's all about the base.
But what do you mean? It's like there's so many different contact points of human beings. So sometimes there's like a meeting of the minds, and sometimes a meeting of the spirit, and sometimes the avoda isn't just like being there sick with each other and being loving with each other. And why is it only about spiritual things? I don't see it.
Did you ever find somebody to fill in for your,
Can you call me about something?
You're always worried about the same thing. Let it go.
Are there more cups?
Are there more cups?
Yes.
No, but in the milk cabinet, there's probably glasses.
I think I'll go get some cups.
I'm sorry that I'm not well situated with cups.
This row, because I asked you questions.
Wait, hold on. Let me pause the recording. Let's pause
Can
the
I tell a
recording.
joke when you're about to start? It's very short.
Yeah.
And it has to do with your intrusive stuff you were talking about.
Oh, yeah? Okay, 1 second. I wanna pause the.
It's a great joke. I finally have a new audience. I've told it to every single person I know.
So let me pause. Okay, yeah.
No, when you're ready to start.
Okay. Come back. We have more to learn. Lipstick. Needs to be liberated.
I have a new song, so I'm gonna sing it the same.
Tangled up.
We have like a negative thing on Friday of creation, but this.
That's what I'm gonna sing when I have those thoughts.
Everything is smooth.
No, it's a foreshadow. We have two foreshadows,
When I have a
actually
matzo
three,
mind.
but let's say two that you can see in the Chumash foreshadowings of what's going to happen at the eating of Eitz Hadas Tov Ra. The first is what happens on Wednesday, on the fourth day, right, which is the Sunday. And then on the fifth day, there's the earth acts rebelliously. And instead of putting out fruit trees that the trees themselves tasted the fruit, they are, instead of Eitz Pri Oseh Pri, they only are Mutzi Eitz Oseh Pri. That's what it says. And the discrepancy between the two. Yeah. So read Rashi again. So Eitz, instead of Hashem says Eitz Pri Oseh Pri, Sheyeh Katama Eitz Katama Pri. The taste of the tree should be, meaning the bark, should be the same as the fruit. Everything. And then but it says Eitz Oseh Pri. It doesn't say Eitz Pri Oseh Pri. It says the earth produced Eitz Pri Oseh Pri. So so the Maral explains on the Rashi that was also a threat of willfulness. Yeah, look in the gray. So it's like a threat of willfulness, and it led to the eating of Eitz Hadas Tov Ra, because it led to the eating of Eitz Hadas Tov
But
Ra.
I don't remember that it mentioned that all in all our studies when we did the high.
Because we didn't do that one. We didn't learn that. No, we didn't learn it.
Yeah.
Because this last parsha, not this last parsha, so that was my question also, like, how are these animals more abominable? Maybe only that happened after the sixth day.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's an issue.
I just thought.
They're not abominable. They're just toxic for Jews.
Right.
They're not abominable.
That's like the whole story we just said.
They're toxic for Jews.
Right, but that's a whole story, because there were people before Jews.
Correct.
Say like this one. We have the Shem consciousness all the time. That's like. When the sun
It's full. It's full. So you have round matzahs because Leila Seder, your moon should be full.
That's like
That's why Leila Seder is the 15th of the month, and it's you get a taste of the month and you get a taste of the big mochin. Because like we get a night out of the year, a night where we get to have like a sense of what that is. You sit, you add. Come back. We're starting up again. We are ourselves and also feeling Hashem. We get to correct something. You know, it says only Lila Seder, you add to the benching, right? That Atuasehem Biroshehem, we're waiting for the big day, the Yom Shekulotov, Yom Shekularo, Yom Shetzadikim Yoshvim, Atuasehem Biroshehem, Beneni Misi Vashkim, right? It's an addition to the benching, you only say Lila Seder. Only Lila Seder, not even the day of Yom Tov. Say it only Lila Seder, Atuasehem Biroshehem, Yoshvim Beneni Misi Vashkim.
And understand where the whole idea of the moon and the sun even came, like, why is it
The 15th of the month, which is the Lila Seder, is the 15th.
Oh, wow.
No, because he's talking about the round matzahs. So the 15th of the month is anyway Geula Dika moment because the moon has come out of its state of diminishment. At the same time, Lila Seder, we have the roundness of the matzah, which just means that state of completion, we want to be able to make it part of us. Okay. We're going back. We're continuing.
Can I tell my joke?
Yeah, tell your joke.
Okay. I have a very funny joke about, Yehudis was talking about intrusiveness. So there's these two women in the shtetl, Rose and Sadie, and they live like with their windows like this into each other's kitchens. So Sadie calls up Rose and she says, Rose, I see you made a cheesecake. I'd like to have a piece of that cheesecake. And Rose says, Sadie, you're such a yenta. Now stop looking in my window. And besides, you're flashing.
Oh my gosh, it's so hilarious.
Isn't that a great joke?
Oh my gosh, Amy, that's amazing.
Thank you for letting me.
Lovely.
That's like the friend that calls up and says, "No, what are you up to?" I said, "I'm up to being ready to be ready."
Yeah.
Ready to be ready. Okay,
Ready to
come.
be ready. I'm ready to be ready.
So more of the Kamana Rebbe. More of the Kamana Rebbe. Okay, so I think we talked enough about the circle matzah. Yeah. Okay. Macholat tzadikim. Right. It's an allusion to the ultimate future where Asir HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yeah. Asir HaKadosh Baruch Hu lasos macholat tzadikim. In the ultimate future, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will make a circle dance for the righteous, which of course means that everybody gets to have an equal access, right? Circle dance on the circle. HaKadosh Baruch Hu at the center is Hashem Kivino, though, is that everybody has a radius that goes to the center, and those lines never cross over and intersect, and everybody's got a shvil that goes directly to Hashem. And so you have that also. Leila Seder is a harbinger of this. Now, let's move on. Okay, so we have someone asked about the charosis. Jumping ahead. Well, no, matzah, Pesach matzah moro. Let's start there. Okay, Pesach matzah moro. Now, Pesach matzah moro has to be said. Yeah, during Leil Seder you have to say Pesach matzah, right? We're going to say in the Haggadah that anyone who didn't say these things, these three things, he wasn't Yotzei Yidei Chovaso. That's the language in the Haggadah, that if you don't say these things, Pesach matzah mar, right? Pesach al shumah, matzah al shumah, mar al shumah, v'kulei. So that's like an integral part of the of Leil HaSeder. Now, I'm trying to remember. Okay, first of all, Pesach Matzah Maror. When you add up all of the gematria of Pesach Matzah Maror, what you have is krasatan. It's the gematria of the words krasatan, to tear the satan, to tear the sitracha. Okay. Pesach Matzah Maror, gematria krasatan, that it like rips up. Yeah. So Pesach Matzah Maror. Okay, we're going to go back now to Kumar Rebbe. So I know we did enough on the round matzah, but let's take just one more moment there. Okay, the round matzah, the hey hayidiyah, that 5 grains that become matzah as opposed to chametz, are all representative of the Shekhinah Kedusha. And the idea of the fullness of the matzah, or the wholeness, both of, like, I'll say the round shmura matzah, is also bringing to us this awareness of like the Shekhinah coming into its fullness and being redeemed. Now, we already spoke about this because that's the idea of the moon, right? The moon is no longer the individuated experience, is no longer the obstacle. It's not an obstacle. It's just a lens through which it's now possible to experience HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the nature of the Shekhinah Kedusha. Shekhinah, Malchus, when we say Shekhinah is in Golus, what do we mean, really? Shekhinah is in Golus. The Shekhinah doesn't go someplace. There's no place for it to go. It's not physical. So what does it mean, Shekhinah begalusa? What does it mean the Shekhinah is in Golus?
It's manifestation.
Okay, so Shekhinah begalusa basically means that there is a barrier between your experience of reality as you know it and your awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If your awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu permeated all of your experience of reality as you know it, we'd say the Shekhinah is out of exile. Because there's no, the external individuated reality isn't serving as an obstacle to perceiving Hashem. Rather, it's just a lens through which you're perceiving Hashem. Then we say that's called Shekhinah Kedusha. When you're able to have a sense in experience, in human experience, right? Lived experience as an individual, as a separate entity from Hashem encapsulated in a body and in human experience. When you're able to fully experience HaKadosh Baruch Hu with you, which again, is it something that you see? Is it something that changes in the physical reality? No. It has to do with where your mind is. It has to do with what you're experiencing internally. So the instant that you feel Hashem and you have awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, at that moment, the Shekhinah comes out of exile, right? Otherwise, we call this Geula. The Shekhinah is full. Yes.
Why the Shekhinah is the Galut? We are the Galut. The Shekhinah is
That's why we
there.
say the Jewish people went into exile and the Shekhinah came with us. So the matzah came. So the matzah comes out with us. We come out of exile, and the matzahs are what we take with us, which is knowledge and awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that's in a state of fullness. And that's what we consume. That's the thing that nourishes us. And that's the food of our liberation, okay? So the food of the future, in a spiritual sense, is matzah, right? Or we could say it's man. It doesn't make a difference. It just means the das, it's the awareness. Kimala Aretz De'as Hashem. Okay, so now the thing is, okay, so Efshar Lomar, Ha'inyan Shel Achilas Matzah B'Isur Chametz. Back to Matzah and Chametz. Zeh Yadua Divrei HaZohar HaKadosh. Everybody knows the words of the Zohar HaKadosh. Al Pasuk Anochi Ereid Imach Mitzrayim V'Anochi Alcha Gam Alo. That was a promise that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made to Yaakov, right? I will go down to Egypt with you. I will certainly take you out from there. I'll come up with you. Mikan deshchinta anachta time begalusa. So the Zohar Kodesh says on that pasuk, this is to tell us that when Yaakov and his family went down into Egypt, the Shekhinah went with Anochi. Hashem said, I'm going down with you. I'm going to come up with you. So the Zohar Kodesh tells us that's the proof, textually, that the Shekhinah goes down to exile with the Jewish people and it comes up from B'chol atid Yisrael Galu. This is the language of the Zohar Kodesh. Every place that the Jewish people were sent into exile. It doesn't matter where. Shchinta is Galia imahon. That the Shekhinah was exiled together with us. Again, when we understand Shekhinah not to be some kind of you see, the problem is that we're very, like, we have our mental pictures are very they're like animations, they're very influenced by, so like the Shekhinah is like a ghost, it's like some kind of like a floaty spiritual, I don't know what we're thinking, but like, it's that kind of thing, but that's not what it is at all. The Shekhinah Kedusha, when it says we go, it comes into exile with us and it comes out of exile with us. It means that the experience of godliness viscerally in the world is contingent on the Jewish people, like when we're absent from it, when it's not available within us, so then it's absent in the world as a whole. And when it's available to us and we are immersed in it, then it becomes available in the world.
That's what it means that the Shekhinah doesn't have a home.
Correct.
That's through us, you're saying?
What does it mean, It means inside of the bayis, but the bayis, or the Mishkan, whatever it is a structure in which Jews come together so that together we get to experience God consciousness, And then it becomes like a kind of nuclear, like instead of the dangers of nuclear fission, we'll say like some kind of theoretical nuclear fusion or something, doesn't harm anything. So no fallout, no radiation, just like pure energy, yes, pure experience, right? Pure experience of godliness when you have a critical mass that's sufficiently strong. So then it causes incredible changes in the world as a whole. So it's not magic. It's like if you'd go to a shul, think about the difference between, okay, you go to a shul and everyone's like shlofedik, it's like, unfortunately, well, everyone's davening fast, or like they're not all there. So it's kind of hard to have a really great davening when you're together with a group of people who are all kind of like, going through the motions. And then think about what it feels like. You're just a regular person. The difference between that and then walking into a different shul where everybody is exceedingly immersed in their davening. All of a sudden you find that hopefully it's going to be a lot easier for you to also feel dveikastik in the davening. It's not because you're copying anybody, and it's not because you're mimicking anything or you're feeding off of anybody. It's more like you're now in a place where there is a critical mass of people who are feeling Hashem. And somehow it makes a difference to you. And it's not quantifiable to us how it works that way. It's not by power of suggestion. It's something actual. It's real. So in a place where it's absent, it's hard to generate this. And in a place where it's available, it becomes easier for everybody else. So just think what it's like to have 600,000 Jews on the Har HaBayis, everybody feeling an incredible closeness and awareness of Hashem. And what kind of a catalyst that becomes a critical mass for consciousness and awareness of Hashem changing throughout all of the world. And that's cool.
Yeah, I think we've got a few things. So apparently that thing that Amber and Audie were going to do is not going ahead. Ronnie texted me to say they haven't got enough numbers.
No, not because I mind being interrupted, but because you might be saying something that's private. Somebody should be careful to mute themselves. Somebody should be careful to mute themselves out. Okay. I have done the work for you. Okay.
Yehudis, you could really see it in.
Chava, 1 second. Someone's in Zoom land. Yes, Chava, miss you. Yes.
So you really could feel the difference in like Jerusalem versus most other places, but certainly between, let's say, Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. So I can see with students, like they have a hard time staying connected or being connected. And Jerusalem, the general thing, and there's people who can't be in Jerusalem, like Israelis, because the sense of it is too strong for them. Like they call it's too intense or whatever. And so you definitely feel it in cities in Israel.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something I don't have to explain too much of, because I think everybody's got a sense of it. Just instead of, the reason why I'm spending time in this is because like we use a lot of terminology that we want to make sure that we're not like, like smushing into very important terminology. A lot of concepts don't belong there. Okay.
Is the Shekhinah there for an entity but a portal?
It's not a thing at all. It's not a thing at all. That's why every Jewish soul is called Mevarei Shekhinah. It's like everybody's got a particular point of consciousness that is available to them in this Gilgul, in this body, in this lifetime. Yeah, that's your particular unique awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's available to you and you alone. It's never been before and it's never coming again. Okay, so that's the sum total of all that you are. Yes, even one little chelkik of a big neshama, it doesn't matter. It is a unique point of possibility of awareness of Hashem. Okay, so that's called your limb of the Shekhinah. That's your piece of Shekhinah. Okay, that's what you have available to you. When enough pieces of Shekhinah get together, so then it becomes something that can be experienced in the world. And just think about like, what does it mean to be in some, think about the shuls. Okay, I think it's a good example. Whatever, yeah.
Your own piece of Shekhinah, your own, like your spirituality available to you, you obviously through avoided can grow it.
Of course, it can change throughout your lifetime. Yeah. Okay.
Does the world experience it through our consciousness of Hashem, or it's not necessarily dependent on us?
No, it has to do a lot with what's happening with us. For the Jewish people as a whole, it also has to do with what's happening within a smaller segment of the Jewish people. See, this is something, there's a lot of confusion about this point. Like when you talk about critical masses, so critical masses have lots of different levels and layers to them. And there being a critical mass of Ovdei Hashem among the Jewish people is extremely important for the Jewish people as a whole. But it's not something, it's like an area that's karuch b'machloket, okay? It's there's a lot of tension and conflict surrounding this.
About the critical mass?
Yeah, it's always necessary. But okay, we'll leave that for a little bit in a little bit of time, okay?
What about all the Jews having Passover Seder? Isn't that a critical mass?
Yeah, it helps.
And that could really
That's why it's this
transform,
moment.
right?
That's why it's this moment of like, when you open the door to Eliyahu Navi, like, aren't you every year always like, hello?
Right, okay. So
Yes, because it is a pregnant moment.
Big
Yeah,
potential, right?
it is a big potential pregnant moment. Yeah. Okay.
Just after the show, you would expect, maybe.
No, you're right. My Mora said when she was in DP camp, they were all convinced that Mashiach is coming right now to take them all to Eretz Yisrael.
Wow.
She said we were like, broken Shevis HaPleita, fulfilling every condition of all of the nevuos of destruction. And we were all gathered together in exile. The Shevis HaPleita were all gathered in, throughout Europe in different camps, just waiting for Mashiach to come. And it didn't happen. When the moment gets pregnant for Geula, so it's like hurry and chaperine before it collapses. You gotta hurry and take advantage of it before it collapses. Okay, let's go on. So through the eating, the actual physical eating of matzah, you're doing something good for Gilui HaShechina in the world. Because the matzah is representative of the Shechina, of Das, Elikus, that comes into its fullness, okay? We've spent an hour talking about it, yeah? So you consuming it, eating it, is a very big moment. So when you make your hamotzi, and then you make the bracha, al achilas matzah, you make 2 brachas, right? And you're going to sit quietly and eat a kazayas, or if you're very firm, 2 kazayasim, okay? You're going to eat however many, whatever your volume is, okay? You're going to sit and quietly shut your eyes and chew on that matzah. You're going to break it down. You have 32 teeth if you've got all your wisdom teeth. Most people do not have wisdom teeth, full sets of wisdom teeth anymore, which just goes to show you what happened to us. Okay, so most, now in Hebrew, you don't call them, what do you call them? You call them shinei bina. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Oh, shinei bina. Okay, now watch. 32 teeth is 32 lamed beis nesivos hachochma. Okay, we talk about al piso that they have 32 individual kalim of breaking down chochma and assimilating it into yourself. Okay, you have 32 spinal nerves also that take all of the influence of the mochin and gets it into your body so that you can make use of it. Okay, so your teeth are actually organized as an aleph. Okay, because it's 16. Okay, so watch. This Arizal writes. This is the Arizal. Okay, your teeth are actually, the way it works is like this. So if you have all 32 teeth, you've got 16 and 16. Now an aleph is a yud and a vav. Okay, so the vav goes this way. It can be split in half, so that an aleph has a total gematria of. No, it's got 26. 26 yud and the vav in between. Correct. Yud above, yud below, vav in between. However, the Arizal says when you open your mouth, you're basically taking the sealed up palate, closed down, locked down with your tongue. Yeah, you open it, Pesach. Yes, Pesach is you open your mouth to talk and to eat. You open your mouth, and what you do is you split the vav so that half that vav, basically it doubles, and half of it goes to the upper yud and half goes to the lower yud. So basically now you have 16 teeth above and 16 teeth below, okay? Yud and above and a yud and above. Wow. You understand? You just basically like split it down the middle so that half the vav went through it, so you doubled the vav. Now, it's not really about the gematria. Think about the visual of it. Then you use those grinders, and they're called rechaim, right? In the language of Mishle, in the language of Koheles, in the language of Chazal, so the teeth are called the grinders. So you're taking grains. Your matzah is basically grains, yeah? You take it in, and you break it down, because it's all this big awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yeah, big awareness. So when you're feeling, you're gonna make hamotzi, you make achilas matzah. Then you sit with your volume of matzah, the proper volume of matzah in front of you, and you start feeding it into your mouth, and you're engaging all of your teeth and your palate and the tongue to crush, break it down, until it's possible for you to assimilate it inside of yourself, and then its spiritual influence, like your brain influence, gets moved throughout the goof, throughout the body, both nutritionally and also the ways in which ideas, big ideas, translate into what you do, how you live, okay? That's what's happening when you're eating your matzah.
And then
That's
we
what
shouldn't
happens.
complain and be so eager to digest it so fast, like we always complain.
People say
I never found in my life that matzah is a problem with digestion. Just drink a lot of water during Pesach. Just like you need to have good chachma, you also need to have a lot of tefillah. So that's the Torah and tefillah, they go together. So if you want to be able to have big Torah, you have to also have a lot of tefillah. You need a lot of water to balance out all the big chachma, right?
It's digested in the mouth.
You start the digestion, you start the process of digestion in your mouth because you have, your enzymes are already breaking down. Peptic enzymes are only in the stomach. For the protein, it's later. But carbohydrates is already in the mouth, yeah.
That means that if you don't
Chew. But that's the way it is with all chachma. If you don't chew it properly, you don't digest it properly. If you don't break it down properly and you don't contemplate it sufficiently, you don't figure out how it's supposed to work, so then it doesn't get to you the way it should.
Sorry. So what are we contemplating?
We're Jewish. That's cute. I like, yeah. Correct, 100%.
Are you talking specifically about the times when we have a chiyuv or mitzvah to eat?
No,
Or would that
always.
apply to
No,
other
always.
holidays?
Always.
No.
He
Is
brings
that
it in
lenient
Akif.
to eat more matzah, or
There,
because
what do you
many
mean?
people say,
During
"I don't
Pesach,
have the matzah
there are those who
matzah."
hold, that it is a mitzvah. It is a mitzvah d'oraisa to eat matzah every day of the Chag. Shivas yamim matzos tochelu. So there are those, the Golem, I think it was, who held away, is that it's a mitzvah, positive commandment that you don't have to fulfill. It's you have an opportunity to fulfill it by, yes, eating some portion of matzah at least once every day during the Chag. There are those who hold it's not a chiyuv, right? But it's something that if you do it, so then you have fulfilled the mitzvah. There are those who hold it's a chiyuv.
Why 14?
Huh?
Why 14?
14 what?
14 times eat matzah?
Why do you say 14 times?
Why did you get to
I don't know. Somebody said to me 14 times.
At night and during the day you should have.
Oh,
It's
Yad.
14.
Yad.
Yad.
Probably because of the yad.
Can
Yad
you just
Adola, Yad
remind us,
Chazaka, Yad Rama. Yeah.
like, how to, in this world, what are we thinking about as we're doing all that chewing on the very
That's what I
important?
want to know. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts?
Listen, no
Like
one can tell
Hashem's
you what your thoughts are supposed to be.
greatness.
I'll tell you a story. I've told this story before, but I'm gonna tell you again. Many years ago, many years ago, we had an old friend of the family. We have an old friend of the family who had experienced, he and his wife lost their son when he was 17 years old. It was very tragic. They were like my second family. I grew up in their house, and they had nothing to do with Yiddishkeit. They were very distant from Yiddishkeit, that family. Afterwards, in the aftermath, I'm not gonna go into the whole story, but the father got more connected than the mother, and he at a certain point was invited to go to his very first Pesach Seder. He went to, if anybody knows, Mayor Fund.
Yeah.
Okay, so he went to Mayor, the Tavish Minyan, he went to Mayor. And it's really amazing because we have a lot of family connections over there. And so he wound up there. And my parents never wanted to suggest anything having to do with Yiddishkeit to them, because when someone's gone through something terrible, you do not want to be that person who's like trying to be makarid them. Okay. So it's not the right thing. You have to, it's very tricky. Okay. So Hashem organized that he would make his connection. The mother always had a problem forever afterwards with her, what she called her own. She already had her makas bechoros. Even when she went to a Seder, she would walk out during the makas. She couldn't bear it. Okay. So he went to his very first Seder. It was the very first time. I mean, he had been to Seder before, right? But like his first, like, frum Seder. So Mayor, everybody's got their portion of matzah. Mayor explains to everybody at the table, we're going to wash, and then we're going to do this, and you don't talk, and you quiet, and you close your eyes. And there must have been like 40 people at the table. So he described afterwards, I asked him how'd it go. So he said, It's the most incredible experience. I had the most incredible experience. So what? So he said, so he gave out, like everybody had in front of their place, the portion of matzah. We all went to wash. We sat down. It's quiet, total quiet. And then brachas, and we start eating the matzah. I'm closing my eyes, and all I hear is crunching. crunching. And all of a sudden, I started to feel like I felt like together with all the Jewish people, I'm crunching on the reeds, the dry reeds at the bottom of the Yam Suf, crossing the Yam Suf. I felt like this big crunching, like I just felt it. So I said, you see, like that's my example. You don't know what mochin you get. You understand? Well, Seder, you can't predict that. You can't say, I'm going to think about this, I'm going to think about that. You're eating matzah. You know, Rabbi Nachman said something that could be misunderstood. But he said something. On Pesach, he held up a piece of shmur matzah. He said, it's a shtik elokus. Now, to say something like that is very shtik elokus. It's like a piece of godliness. Okay? Because he was referencing all these ideas of the matzah and consciousness and shechina kedosha b'chulei. That's what, but he said, like, no one needs to feed you ahead of time. You just have to make enough space to be able to hear the reverberation of the chewing of the matzah. You know what I'm saying? Okay, let's go on. So, yeah, I'm skipping around the Kamana Rebbe a lot because there's just so many things here. Like think about now, okay, so look at, okay, enough about the matzah. We'll talk about the maror. Maror is marmar. When you eat the maror, you toivel the maror in the charoses. Okay, so you dip in the charoses, and the practice is to sort of shake off the charoses. Not like we used to like to do, which was like make a whole, you know. Okay, so the practice is to dip in and then to shake it off. Now, let's think about the positioning. So maror is in the middle position. Yeah, it's in the position of Tiferes on the Seder plate, according to that result. And Charoses is down in the side of Netzach, right hand lower.
Which is Chesed.
It's below Chesed on the right hand side. Now, what does the Charoses represent? And that's why you shake it off, right? Cement made out of, it's genocidal building materials.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it is. Do you know that after water, I just found this out. After water, what is the most used substance in the world after water?
Cement.
Concrete. Yeah, concrete. Because you just said kind of crazy. Not bread, not concrete.
Ooh, just experienced that.
Good and well. Yes,
yeah, and then you blow them up. You got to build them all over again. Blow them up and build them all over again.
Wow.
So So cement, we'll call it, it's the genocidal building material. Yeah, red and wine in it and grapes in it to make it like blood and bones and little bits of white. You understand? It's like it's really awful material. Yes, it tastes so good. It's so sweet. So its sweetness that's the side of chesed in it. Okay, meaning it's positionally in a good position, but the substance itself brings up bad things. Yeah. So what's it doing there? What's it doing there in that right-hand position if what it represents is the genocidal building material? And it's not what like here we're talking about, you know, the subtle hints, the cues, right? So what's it doing there on the right-hand side? And it's in a position of netzach. Netzach is Yisrael lo yishakir. Netzach means eternity. It means victory. In the crushed bones of the children of the Jewish people, that's where is going to be netzach. Apparently, yes. Apparently, yes. And its sweetness is because it incorporates a hamtaka. The Arizal said, charoses is called charoses because it's chas rus. Chas root. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has compassion on root.
Why Mashiach?
Why root?
Oh, Mashiach.
Why was Ruth called Ruth? Why is her name Ruth? She's going to have a great grandchild who is Ravel HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'shiras tishbachos. That's what it says in the Medrash. Her name comes from the language of rivaya, of rivaya, means to be suffused with and overflowing with something. So incredible abundance. But she's called Ruth as a precursor because she's Em Malchus. She's the origin point of David, right? Who's going to be the great grandfather of Mashiach Tzidkenu. Yes? So it means the origin point of Malchus based David, right? The truth is, where does it come from?
From Lot.
From Lot.
Yeah.
No, further back. You're too far. You're too far down the family tree.
Pre-Avram?
Who's Lot's father? There's three brothers. Terach has a son, Avraham. Nahor has a son, Besuel. And third brother is Haran. And Haran has a son, Lot. Okay, so
Sarah's also from
she's related from the other from the cousin. So we have here.
Who comes from the daughters?
Hold on.
Yeah.
So who is Haran? Who's Haran?
the one who wanted to go into the burning bush after Avram.
The
went.
burning furnace.
Burning furnace, yeah.
And he was burnt.
But he was burnt. Why was he burnt?
Because he didn't went with the Munah.
He hid behind a rock. You know, it says in the Medrash says he hid up behind a stone, and he hid behind the stone and he waited to see what would happen with Avram Avinu. Because if Hashem saves him, so then I'm also going to be Moser Nefesh, right? I'll also make a Kiddush Hashem. And if not, then I'll stay here behind the rock. So we see Haran as the origin point of a kind of or v'choshech mishtamshim berbuvia, is that he's got light and dark inside of him. And in the end, Avram Avinu was saved. He jumps out. He says, I'm also a Mamin. I also believe only in the one God. He gets thrown in the fiery furnace and he gets burnt to a crisp. Yeah. And Chazal say about him, Kol asomech ala nes, en hanes misrachish biyado. Right? So it means that a person who assumes that a miracle is going to be done for them, it's nisim aren't done for them. Okay? Mesiras nefesh means you took a risk for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Not that you felt you had a sure thing. So Haran is, we see in him a lot of light and also a lot of darkness. Now think about his name. He's Haran, and they come from Haran. Okay, so he's got an opening to tshuva. The ches is closed. The hay is open at the top to make a space for tshuva. The open bottom of the ches and the hay is like, in this world, it's easy to fall out and make mistakes. Boom, you can fall right out. But the hay is open at the top, right? Chazal say, this world was created with a hay, right? Kiva Hashem to Olam, like it says in Yeshayahu, Hashem created this world and the next world using the shem, yud, and hay. Okay? The yud is for the next world. It says because tzaddikim, they're not allowed tzaddikim who get there, and they get there by virtue of making themselves small. Okay, so that's the next world. But for this world is a hay. It says in Menachos, right? Because you can fall at the bottom, but you can come and wiggle your way up the leg and come in back through the aperture above. So Chazal asks, how come you can't just come out through go back in the way you came out? What do they say?
So you need to be different. You need to create for yourself.
They don't know style. The answer in the Gemara is it doesn't work. So then there's Parshanut, right? Parshanut about why it doesn't work. Because you have to change, you have to be different, you have to make the effort, right? You got to creep up. Okay, but the openness of the hay, think about this. And you see the difference? Okay, they're both guttural letters. They're here in the throat. It's like aleph and ayin, hey and che. Okay, they're different letters because they have to do with different stages of occlusion in your throat. You know, I told you this. I flew Emirates on the way there and back from, and I went through Dubai. So when you're on the plane with like 70% are Arabic speakers. So I'm on the plane, maybe 60%, because there's a lot of people from other places too, maybe 60% are Arabic speakers. So I'm hearing a lot of Arabic on the plane. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, wow. All these years, we talk about Mitzrayim being the place of Meitzar Garon, yeah, of the constriction of the throat. And I have not been attentive to the fact that actually Arabic itself, yes, and I don't know how, I'm trying to find out how ancient Egyptian sounds. I don't know if we have like good resources for being able to reconstruct how ancient Egyptian sounded. Maybe I have to keep doing research. But like, presumably, it's there's some similarity. The Meitzar Garon of the closure of the throat that's common in Arabic. You know that in terms of Hebrew and Arabic distinctions, so it's all about closure and openness. Hebrew and Arabic are very, very similar. Their tonality is similar, except that Arabic is a much tighter language. Yeah? Okay, we also have ha ha ha, but we also have ha ha ha. We also have, there's more openness and fluidity in the throat. Okay, so that's just like a linguistic thing that I've been thinking about a lot, just because of the season. And so let's go back. The ha and the cha. So Haran is the place where Avram Avinu's family comes from. Yeah, and Haran is the product of Haran that has a petach to something good. Okay, he could do tshuva. Thing is, he dies without tshuva, right? He dies and something is unrectified.
Even it's not called.
No, it's not. What it did was it created his descendants. Pardon? Oh, okay, Beseder. Oh, that was this personal quote. Okay, good. It's not a table; it's a bench for outside, so I can store my things. Okay, so the garden equipment accumulates. I have to put it together. Okay, so so Pesach is when all the new things, it's time to make all the new things. So so Haran has an openness. It's a fact in like a spiritual reality. Not even a good desire goes lost. Everything that's good, a good word, a good action, and even a good desire, a good thought, it has permanence, it has reality. So you're welcome to sign for me. זהו, בסדר, זה פה, תודה. Okay. Okay. He doesn't want it to get like stolen out of my front. Okay, so that openness, it doesn't disappear. It goes down into his descendants. So then we have Lot. And who's Lot? Lot is like a totally bad guy?
No.
He's complex. He's complex.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of good, and he also has a lot of bad. So his Nekudas Tovos, like you can see, it's kind of like rolling down. Yeah, generationally it rolls down into his descendants. So Lot also doesn't manifest his potential for goodness. He winds up running the show in Sodom and what he does there, and it's like such an orvachoshech mishamshim berbuvia. He wants to save the people, so he does this. So it's like such a confusion of his light and his dark. Then he has daughters, yeah, and these daughters also are a confusion of light and dark, right? They want to save the world. This is how you do it. Okay, so again, forward. And then they have Moab. So we have Moab, and we also have Ammon. And both of them are going to have predot, shtei predot avot. It's we have restrictions on the Jewish people when we came out of Mitzrayim, like what we can do to Ammon, what we could do to Moab. Why? So Chazal tell us, because we already had a Kabbalah. Shtei predot atidot batzeit mi Ammon v'Moab. There are two big Choshevas prizes that are going to come out in the future. Rus HaMoaviyah ve'Naama Ammonis. Naama Ammonis is coming in the time of the Malachim. Okay, so that's down the line. It's not yet. Now, Rus has a sister. She comes from also a complex person in Moab. Who's her father?
Goliath.
No, that's Orpah. Orpah creates the mother of Goliath. Rus and Orpah are sisters. Yeah, who do they come from? Who's their father? They were princesses of Moab. Eglon. Eglon is a completely bad guy. He dies at the hand of it. He stood for the Navi. Okay, so we see that there's like this rolling forward of the ptichut, of this openness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, yeah, until it finally comes to the head with two sisters, Rus and Orpah. And Orpah is the Orif. What happens when they split at the boundary of Eretz Yisrael is that all of the Nekudas Tovos that were in Orpah from that long line that went all the way back to Haran, they get transferred into Rus, and she brings them into Eretz Yisrael with her to Beis Lechem. Beis Lechem, the language of Lechem, is Hilchem, means to take two opposite kinds of substances and to join them together to make something new out of them. You know what it means? A Hilchem? You know what it means? It means to weld. Welding is Halchama. Okay, so welding is when you take fire and you melt metals to join together two pieces of metal.
What was the reason why?
Because of Ratzon, because she decided she wanted Kedusha and Orpah turned her back and walked away. At that moment, they had a spiritual exchange between the two of them. Orpah becomes totally a klipa, And Rus draws all of the Nekudas Tova. So she's like, so back to Rus. Chas Rus. What does HaKadosh Baruch Hu have compassion on within Rus?
Her lineage.
This whole long Gilgul of all of this Nitzotzos HaKedusha of extraction. Really, what is David HaMelech? David HaMelech is going to come from her. It's from a long, because Mashiach is an individual has to come and he has to be able to transform Nachash into Mashiach. There's no place that's completely devoid of Chayus Makadosh Baruch Hu. Every single place, every situation, every circumstance, every person.
The evil out of the world.
No, he's able to extract the good and bring to the surface the good and the godliness that's in everything. And then Mela, the evil falls to the side. So Rus is like, she's this, like a reservoir, you understand? Of the Kedusha that eventually is going to get actualized through David HaMelech and through Mashiach, his descendant. But where is it all sitting at the moment that it separates away from Klippah? It's all sitting in Rus. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I have compassion on her. Chas Rus. Now the thing is, because she has Nukudas inside of her that need to emerge. But the thing is, until you get to the full emergence of the potential for Kedusha and Rus, there's going to be buildings made out of Jewish babies. Hashem Yirachem. And so it's cement, and you only eat a little bit of it on the morrow, because how much can you take? It's already morrow is already mar enough, right? And nevertheless, you temper the harshness of the morrow through dipping it in the charosas, because there is sweetness. Because we know that no matter how difficult it gets, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is only bringing us through all of the difficult things that he does in order to allow the Kedusha to emerge, and all of the hidden potential that's inside of creation, it's going to come out. It's going to be released. Now, okay.
Like now.
Charosas. Okay, now hold on a second. Okay, now it's getting late. So I want to share a little bit from this Sefer, very little. Okay, this Sefer, I'm always finding, this is the interesting thing about marrying somebody who buys farm and hides them in the house. Is that he hides them because every time he brings more sperm, I say, but there's like, we added more bookshelves, so now there is more bookshelves. Like, it doesn't mean that that you can buy more sperm. It means that the sperm that already doubled up in the other room, that they need to come out so we can see what we have. Yeah, it's okay. I can laugh about it. It's already 30 years. I can laugh about it. So this Sefer I never saw before. I found this Sefer on Shabbos, and I took it out because that's what I do. On Shabbos is when I have time to wander in the bookshelves. I'm like, where did you get this? When did you get this? It's like, oh, he's mine, for ages. Sure. Okay, so this I pulled it out of the book. I pulled it out of the bookshelf just because I was like, "What is this?" It was with the Ramchal stuff. There's a bookshelf over there that's full of Ramchal. Okay, so it's called Bayom Hahu Yeh Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad. That's the name of the book. Wow, it sounds like a good book. I was like, not only that, but it's also small, so it's manageable. I can take it out and actually get a sense of what's in it. And it was written by somebody who's a big mumche on Ramchal, and what he's really doing is writing a chibur that's based on the amalgamation of lots of different teachings in Ramchal. No, not Ramat Bali, Ramchal. Okay, so Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. So basically he's drawing from, this one is mainly drawn from Das Tunos, which when I first came across Das Tunos, it's like everyone says it's like a Musar Sefer. Das Tunos, it was translated, Feldheim put it out many years ago as the Knowing Heart. But the truth is, a lot of people find it difficult, much harder to learn than the Sil Sharm, because it was written as a philosophical dialogue, and a lot of people have a hard time relating to it. And the truth is, Das Tunos in any case it can be read as a Musar Sefer, but it's really a book of Kabbalah, like all the books of the Ramchal.
Book of what?
It's really a Kabbalistic work.
Oh,
so it's very confusing, because if you just try to read it in the English translation that they did, which is a fine translation as far as translation goes, but as far as translations go, but it's really like you're missing the point, because that's really not what it is. Okay, so he compiled this, lots of different teachings having to do with Geula, based on not the Ramchal's Sefer HaGeula, which is a whole different thing, which is an amazing one Sefer. Maybe we'll learn it, I don't know. But this is from Das Tunos. Now, he says something here at the beginning that I don't want to go into this particular, it's not the beginning of the book, but it's the beginning of this section. that I want to read it to you just because it's so powerful. Now, this is not the language of Ramchal. This is the language of this author who is basing his writings on Ramchal. Okay. Sof Hagalus Haruka Ha'achrona Shigalus Edom Nikreis B'fi Chazal Ikvus Mashiach. We are all familiar with the idea that the end of this long last exile is called, which is of course Edom, the Galus Edom, is called in the language of Chazal the Ikvus Mashiach, the heels of Mashiach. Harav Tikachinsky, that's Rav Yechiel Michal Tikachinsky, who wrote the Gesher HaChaim. Okay, he was here in our. I don't know, maybe I don't know. But he wrote Gesher HaChaim, and he was a great sage of Yerushalayim. And, well, anyway, he wrote in Gesher HaChaim, Shesof Hagalas Nikreis Kach. This is going to be a different. Okay, everybody should have, I think, some understanding of what does it mean, the ikvus of the Mashiach. How do we normally translate that? The heels. Okay, so some ways we understand it like, because when Adam Rishon was laid out in his creation, HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed him dor v'dorshav, right? That's the medrash on the statement Eile Toldos Adam. These are the generations of Adam, right? In Perek Gimel we have a repetition, and so it says Eile Toldos Adam b'Yibara'ah v'chulei. And Chazal say Eile Toldos Adam. The drasha on this, these are the generations. What do you mean the generations? We don't yet hear about who gave birth to, right? So it means the events that took place. I mean, we're talking about like something that took place in the course of a few hours. So what are the tolados? No, it means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Adam's creation revealed to him dor v'dorshav, right? Dor v'dorshav, like there's a street, right? Dor v'dorshav. So that language of dor v'dorshav means every generation has Torah leadership that is appropriate for that generation. Okay, so we have the dor dea. Yeah, the generation that left Mitzrayim. And who led them out? Moshe Rabbeinu, who's called the Das. Yeah. And then we have generations that are like the ears, and generations like the mouth, and generations like the throat, generations like the heart. David HaMelech is the heart, he's called the leg, and so on, 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 until we finally get to the bottom, least sensitive, furthest from the Moach generation, which is the final generation before Mashiach, which is called the heel. Okay? And that's it's the least sensitive part of the body, physically, yeah, in terms of your skin and the thickness of the skin there. And Chazal says the furthest from the mochim. It's the furthest away from the influence of holy awareness.
I was joking,
That's
but not
us.
Not your toes, your toenails, the heel.
Your toes and your toes are far more sensitive
Yeah, they
physically.
are more sensitive, but they're further away.
It's about sensitivity, meaning in terms of the influence of the mochim. Okay, so ikvus of the Mashiach, which sometimes people would translate as footsteps of, right? Because it's like, oh, you're kind of like following, you're trying to figure out like what's going on, right? But normally we say heels, yes? Okay, Rav Tukachinsky Zatzal says, Sof hagalus nikreis kach mishum. Shekachol shomdim anu b'sof hagalus miskarim yoser v'yoser legeula. All the while that we are getting closer and closer to the end of exile, and and closer and closer to Geula. Harei domeh hadavar leleida. Okay, everyone's familiar with this idea. It's like a birth. Yesh chavlei leida, yesh chavlei Mashiach. We talk about there being birth pangs, and there being birth pangs of redemption, Mashiach. Hem hayisurim lifnei leidas Mashiach. All of the troubles that beset the Jewish people are called the birth pangs that accompany the birth of Mashiach. Hanolad mitoch yisurei hagalut. He is born from out of the pain of the end of exile. Ukimo b'leida. This is where the chiddush is. You know, when it comes to birth, yesh leidati v'surigila sheba yotzei ha'uba min harechem k'shirosho yotzei tchila. There are births where the baby is in vertex position and the head is born first. And that's the best situation possible. But then there are more dangerous births. Very dangerous births and harder births. That's when the baby is not in a vertex line. He sticks his feet out first, his heels out first, the feet first. The exile has lasted so long because we were not zochet to be redeemed early. Rather, it's happening in its time, as opposed to I will hasten it. It's a breech birth. It's a breech birth. We're having a breech birth. Yeah. The symptoms, listen, the symptoms of Ikvus de Mashiach are symptomatic of the birth being breech, which means the heels come out first. No mochin, very far away from Hashem, consciousness of Hashem, very little leadership. We don't have real leadership. And its birth pains are therefore hard, extremely difficult, and extremely dangerous. Okay. That's why Chazal chose to describe the Geula, if it comes at the end of the 6,000 years, meaning if we get that far, because they said the time of Mashiach is any time from the destruction of the second bais, right? 2,000 years Tohu, 2,000 years Torah. That's what it says in the beginning of Gemara B'Zorah. 2,000 years Tohu, 2,000 years Torah, 2,000 years Yemos HaMashiach. That means Yemos HaMashiach started when? 2,000 years ago, at the time of the Churban. So how come it's gone this long? Because they said it could happen from the beginning. If it happens early, then it happens at vertex birth, head first. And if it gets to the end, then it's Ikvus the Mashiach. Then it's called the heels, because the heels are born first.
So it's long and painful.
Correct. What? There's never been a successful breech birth? Of course there is. Just because it's harder, and just because it takes longer, and just because it has more dangers associated with it, doesn't mean that it's not a successful birth. The child Mashiach is going to be born 100% fine. Emetz Hashem, Chazak, Ve'isan, Malei Ruach Hashem. He's going to be born. He'll come into the world healthy, strong, filled with the Spirit of Hashem. And his light is going to shine throughout the world. And Chazal make very, very clear at the end of Gemara and Sota that the last symptoms of the end of the exile are they're heartbreaking. They're terrible. One of the symptoms is chutz b'yazge.
What?
One of the symptoms is chutz b'yazge. Chutz b'yazge means
complete rejection.
Yeah, no. Chutz b'yazge has Chazal used chutz b'yazge. It means chutz is going to be really, really strong. Chutz b'yazge. When in the cheder, I remember, just as a side, a little bit of a humor. So I remember that in the Kita Gan, we had once one of the rebbes of the boys in the Kita Gan, when he would get, the kids would act up and he would go, Chutz b'yazge! He would like, Chutz b'yazge! Yeah.
And I something, and I asked a very innocent, but I thought was an innocent question, was, are there simonim?
Yaske in Aramaic means it gets big, like the word in Hebrew, big. Yeah, big. It's going to grow. Okay. But chutz b'yazge isn't just like a kid's mouth off, okay? That's like a very little minor manifestation. That's not what Chazal were referring to, the kids mouth off. Kids always mouth off, okay? That's not the main expression of chutz b'yazge.
It's a general rejection.
No, chutz b'yazge is that mechutzafim shebador will have a lot of power. That the alleged leaders of the Jewish people will be anashim mechutzafim that are not fit to lead themselves, much less lead anybody else. Chutz b'yazge means that the power will be in the hands of people who are anashim chutzafim. What? Rain. Yeah. So we have to realize that chutz b'yazge, right, is something that affects the entirety of the Jewish people. And it's very, very important for us to hold on tight to the understanding that critical mass of emunah, critical mass of tefillah, critical mass of geula awareness is not going to happen from the top down for this geula. Okay, don't expect for Knesset to become I don't know what, like koilam. Okay, that's not the direction. You understand? It's not the direction, because it's just part of the process that at the end in Iktus the Mashiach, there's an inversion of all of the klalim. You know, it's like, remember, think about that birth upside down, which means that it's like the simple people who catalyze the possibilities of emunah and trust in Hashem and closeness with Hashem. That's the phenomenon that you're waiting to see. Okay.
And it's happening.
Yes.
That's
simple.
Rain,
yes.
the king and the rain and the tenant.
With Moshe, he was the most enough. And here it's the opposite. The leadership is the most chutzpah, and the people are the most
people. So the thing that we really focus on is to find and focus on and cultivate within ourselves, with everybody that we come close with, right? The potential for kedusha and connection with Hashem and loving one another that's inside each of us, and in every single Jew, every single simple person, in every person basher husha. This is where Geula is happening. That's where all of the energy of the correction and the repair of Iktus the Mashiach is coming from. Okay, so that's and we'll end off with this. To find and discover each other. Chasrus. Akash Baruch Hu has incredible rachmanis, even though that it's the cement and it's bloody cement, but it's on the side of chasadim. The tinok is coming. The blood is going to come out. You can't. Not for a second. Don't be doubting for a second. Mashiach is on the way. Bez Hashem. It should be soon, halevai. But you know, Rav Nosson said, even if it is the last hour of the last day of the year 5,999, I am still, Rav Nosson said, no one could convince me otherwise. Rabbi Nachman's birthday, that's right.
Yeah.
It's Rosh Chodesh. Okay, so in the spirit of it being Rosh Hashanah L'Mlachim, we should be zochet to genuine Jewish leadership. Ki marachim amina hagem. Should be zochet to revelation of the light of Mashiach Tzidkenu. B'mehera b'yamein. Amen. Amen.
This Hester is amazing thing. You enjoy.
We're all part of it. Who's not part of it?
I remember that talks about that concept that the Dorot are coming down, but the time is linear till the end, right? Like, even though the Dorot are coming less and less far away from the kid, the inertia of the timing is getting us closer and closer. So it's like I don't know. I remember like imagining it that way.
Well, you could think about it like this. These are not incandescent bulbs, but think about like. The way I like to think about it is like this. You have the old bulbs with the wires, yeah? And good chodesh. The old bulbs, the wire that was used traditionally making those bulbs was tungsten, okay? The metal tungsten was a very heavy atomic weight. Very, very heavy. It's like W is like 200 and something on the periodic table. It's very heavy. So why do you use that? Because it has so much resistance. Because it's dense, when the electrons flow through, it's actually struggling. And because it's against the big resistance, it causes the heat and the light to happen. Because if it was a good conductor, then the electrons would go through and make it a light. So you want something occluded. And the occluded, when the energy goes through it, actually creates incredible order. So that's the way I always think about it. It's like, yes, it's occluded, but occlusion doesn't mean it's the resistance that creates the light.
Yes, amazing. That's amazing. I love the message.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, no, there's no more incandescent bulbs, so it's harder for people to relate to. Okay.